Morning. We're going to begin today's regular meeting of the LA County Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission. I'm calling to order the meeting, and I think everyone in the audience, we all know each other. I'm the chair of the commission, and I want to thank you for joining us today, whether you're live or online. They make me give a quick overview for people who are new to our commission. I'm going to just say that we try to improve accountability and transparency between the community and our sheriff's department. We generally investigate the big picture, not individual cases. And most importantly, I think the sheriff would agree, we have a lot of frank, hard-hitting discussions here, but we're proud to host a meeting where everyone treats each other with respect and professionalism, even though people are very passionate about the issues. And we're all really committed to that. So I hope everyone will keep that in mind. On today's agenda, we have the memorandum of understanding between the LASD and the COC and all the problems that have ensued when we have continued to ask for that memorandum of understanding. And then we're also going to take up the difficult issue of perceived harassment of families after their loved ones have been killed by deputy sheriffs. And we're going to have a community presentation on that. So before we take the roll, I just wanted to say, Sheriff Luna, I read the heartbreaking news that you had 4 members you lost to suicide in a one-day period. I know you're a big organization, but it's just such sad news. Our heart goes out to you. I don't think there's anything we can do, but if we can do anything as you struggle with that, please let us know. I know you've really been dealing with a lot of grief in this time, and I'm just really sorry.
Thank you.
So could we, Eric, could we take the roll?
Yes, can you hear me? Yeah,
can
Chair
hear you.
Kennedy, before we take the roll, we have some announcements to make. Good morning and welcome. Public participation in our meeting is one of our main goals, and we welcome your comments in person, through WebEx, by telephone, or in writing. There will be an opportunity for public comment on each agenda item and at the end of the meeting during general public comment. For items on the agenda, Chair Kennedy will introduce the item, presentations will be heard, the commission will discuss the item, and public comment will be taken. If you wish to speak in person, please fill out a public comment card and turn it in at the table with the public comment sign. If you are on WebEx, please raise your hand by selecting the hand symbol. If you called in to listen to the meeting, please press *3 on your phone to activate the raise hand feature. We ask that all speakers ensure your comments abide by the meeting's code of conduct. Everyone will have 2 minutes to speak unless the chair determines otherwise based on the number of speakers signed up for each item. We will make a similar announcement in Spanish and then I will take the roll.
Buenos días y bienvenidos. La participación pública en nuestras reuniones es uno de nuestro objetivo principal y agradecemos sus comentarios en persona y a través de WebEx, por teléfono y por escrito. Habrá una oportunidad para comentarios públicos sobre cada tema de la agenda y al final durante los comentarios general. Para los temas de la agenda, el Chair Kennedy presentará el tema, se escucharán las presentaciones, los miembros de la comisión discutirán el tema y después tomarán los comentarios del público. Si desea comentar en persona, complete una tarjeta de comentarios y entrégasela a un miembro personal en la mesa asignada con el cartel de comentario público. Si está participando por Webex, levante la mano y selecciona la imagen de la mano si quiere comentar. Si llamó para escuchar la reunión, oprima la tecla de la estrella y el número 3 en su teléfono para activar la función de la mano levantada. Les pedimos a todos los participantes que van a comentar que sus comentarios cumplan con el código de conducta de la comisión. Todos los participantes que van a dar un comentario tendrán 2 minutos para comentar, a menos que el Chair Kennedy determine lo contrario en el tiempo asignado. Gracias.
Okay, Chair Kennedy, I'll take roll now. Chair Sean Kennedy,
Here.
Vice Chair Jamon Hicks,
Present.
Commissioner Robert Bonner,
Here.
Commissioner Irma Higgins Cooper, Commissioner Luis S. Garcia,
Here.
Commissioner Patricia Giggins,
Here.
Commissioner James Harris,
Here.
Commissioner Hans Johnson.
Here.
Chair Kennedy, we have a quorum. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, and I believe Irma is on her way, or it's going to be a little late. So the first agenda item, these are just the procedural stuff on the consent calendar. We have the approval of the October 19th meeting minutes. Any objections? Hearing no objections, the consent calendar is approved, and we're going to begin our meeting as is the custom. Hearing family impact remarks, we have someone we have never heard from before, Selena Coleman, on the line. And then we're going to hear from Stephanie Luna, who's present here. Thank you for being here, Stephanie.
And Chair Kennedy, the person who was going to give family impact remarks online hasn't signed in yet, so we can move to Stephanie Luna.
Okay, Stephanie.
So we'd keep that up.
Maybe someone could help out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. All right, let's get it going. Good morning. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the commission for putting the issue of family harassment on the agenda today. Unfortunately, I'm not a stranger to this commission, and neither is what I'm going to speak on. My name is Stephanie Luna, and I am the surviving family of Anthony Vargas, shot and killed in August of 2018. Before I go any further, though, I'd like to add that having family impact remarks reserved for newly injured families only isn't going to work. Families are injured by the Sheriff's Department on a consistent basis. These 10 minutes should be open to any family that is willing to take time off of work or away from their families to address you. The issue of family harassment is one that has affected not only my family, but the families of John Horton, A.J. Weber, Ivan Pena, Mitrice Richardson, Paul Rea, Dejan Kazee, Marco Vasquez Jr., Ryan Twyman, Eric Briseño, Fred Williams, David Ordaz Jr., and so many others. We are talking about a department that will come after you because you dare to speak out against them. This includes impacted children. A department that will murder your loved one, then show up at their vigil hours later smiling and taking pictures. A department that will follow and pull you over with guns drawn for no reason other than to mess with you. A department that will search your home hours after your loved one was killed in an effort to criminalize them. A department that allows the same deputies that murdered your loved one to be across the street from your family home. A department that will detain you and drive you around for hours before taking you to the station that is less than 5 minutes away from where you were arrested. Families like mine are surviving being surveillanced, taunted, followed, doxxed, and illegally detained. Since Anthony's murder in 2018, we have been living our life in constant retaliation. The more that we have spoken out, the more that it seems the harassment has increased. The harassment we are enduring is not limited to adults, but our children and elderly are subjected to it as well. We have had a responding deputy cyber stalk our social media platforms. He is the deputy responsible for placing the handcuffs on Anthony's lifeless body. While our page is public, and I understand that, this deputy would have to have physically searched up my nephew's name in order to find it. We have had multiple encounters with specific deputies who have targeted Anthony's brother since 2018. One incident occurred while he was buying tacos and he was met with guns drawn and no explanation given. Instead of deputies proceeding to give him a ticket as they're told to do, they proceeded to point their flashlight at the phone recording them so we could not get their faces. They are documented in the May 2021 ACLU family harassment report. These same deputies were also dispatched outside of Anthony's third-year anniversary, where they pointed and laughed at us while we mourned. We have been pulled over for bogus traffic stops, never given a ticket, and have had guns drawn at us. We have been tailgated and boxed in while operating vehicles. We have had deputies tell us to our face that they gave Anthony a degrading nickname within the station. We have had Anthony's killer, Jonathan Rojas, outside our family home. We have had our elderly mom followed all the way into our home driveway, only to have them speed off when we ran outside to catch them. The kids have been followed from school by slow driving sheriff vehicles all the way home, which is now why 2 of them have decided to be homeschooled. This department shows no regard for human life or safety. We are only one of many impacted families living life dealing with deputy gang harassment, and that has made us fair game within LASD. They systematically go after anyone who speaks out against them. Anyone who speaks out against them is seen as the enemy. The psychological trauma this department has inflicted on us has been severe and is long-lasting. There's nowhere to turn. We began publicly documenting our harassment at these meetings years ago in an attempt to create a public paper trail. So in the event that something happened to one of us, it would be known that we have been speaking about it. We don't get to go home and grieve or even just live in peace because we're living in a constant belief that we can be next. This is not a way that we or any of the other families should be living. It's bad enough that I have to see the 2 deputies responsible for Anthony's murder around my community on a day-to-day basis. The deputies that inflict the harassment are held to no account. Instead, we're made out to be the liars. We're made out to be the ones that don't know what we're talking about, or we're made out to be the ones that are the aggressors. We're asked to show proof, insinuating that we're making all this up, as if I don't want to stay home and just grieve my nephew's murder. You know, we file complaints. We've shown the videos and photos that we do have. We've done our part. You know, and I only laugh because when you've gone through what we have, I think that you'd be surprised that you're still standing here today to give this testimony. I'm not asking for anything that's far-fetched or crazy. All I'm asking is that the Sheriff's Department, at the very least, adopt a policy that prohibits the harassment of surviving families. The county is capable of holding these deputies accountable and setting a standard for them to adhere by. The Board of Supervisors requested this back in 2021, and 2 years later, here we are. Different leadership and the same demand. Families have been harassed for years, and this goes back to the family of John Horton, who was killed in 2009. 2009, we're in 2023, and just a few months ago, my son experienced harassment and a physical threat at the hands of one of your deputies. A deputy that physically threatened his life because he was recording him. A deputy that he has had multiple encounters with. A deputy that followed him home from not just his high school, but from now his college community. You know, and I don't know. You know, this is a deputy that threatened his life because he was recording him, which is what we've been told to do, right? We're told on a daily basis, record them so we can prove that this is happening. Well, my son recorded him and he had his life physically threatened because of it. Robert, you're capable of doing something. You're capable of adhering or implementing at the very least a policy that prohibits deputies from harassing surviving families. And the mere fact that I'm standing here today asking that the Sheriff's Department stop harassing grieving families, stop harassing impacted families, and that the Sheriff's Department stop harassing anyone in general is extremely concerning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Chair Kennedy, I think the other person has logged in. Selena Coleman, a request has been sent to you. If you can just acknowledge it on your phone and begin your comment. Selena? Selena, if you see a request on your phone, can you please acknowledge it?
I did.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay. All right. First of all, I want to say my name is Selena Coleman, and I am an LA County employee. And so with that said, the impact on my family has been financially devastating and mentally challenging. How has it been financially devastating? My daughter drove I have two older daughters that was driving my cars after the killing of my future son-in-law. We had 10 police impounds, 3 30-day holds. One time, it was definitely illegal. My niece was driving the car. Everything, we had insurance, license, registration, and everything. They still did not let her drive the car around or away. They impounded it and put a 30-day hold on it. So if you times it, 385, 7 times 3, plus, 385 times 7, plus 3 times a 30-day holds, $1,400, a total of $6,965 just from illegal impounds of interactions. They arrested my daughter, whose boyfriend was the one and the father of my grandchildren who were killed. They arrested her, holding her for 14 days, saying that she went to court when she did never go to court. It cost us $8,000 to bail her out. When she went to court, the case was dismissed, and we still are responsible for that bail. Playing with the paperwork while she was in custody was not okay. The mental challenges, my daughter has PTSD from the police killing her son's father. She would have panic attacks every time she seen the police pulling someone else over. As she got better, she started filming. One of her videos went viral. Over 53 million people seen it, and the harassment just got worse for her. She started filming another time, and the police issued a warrant because of that, talking about they wanted copies of her footage just to harass her. And when we had marches set up, they would be at my door at 3 o'clock in the morning, knocking on it, talking about your dogs are barking. Well, I had obedient dogs, and my dogs would only bark when somebody was on our property. So they was doing what they were supposed to do. And so I know all police are not bad, but Leroy was killed long before George Floyd. And the harassment that we receive from LA County, it doesn't stop. I know all police is not bad, but the system itself is bad. And so we need to do something about that. So thank you for allowing me time to speak.
Thank you. Is that it, Eric?
Yes.
Well, the stories from Stephanie and Selena show we still have a lot of work to do. Why don't we move to agenda item number, I'm sorry, I have to ask, this concludes our first agenda item. So do we have any requests for public comment?
Not at this time, Chair Kennedy. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move to 2, the issue of reports, and then we're going to take up number 3, the MOU. So Sheriff Luna is here right now. So Sheriff, we appreciate you being here, and I'm going to offer you the first opportunity to give an update on anything you would like the public and this commission to know about the department.
Chair, just for my clarification regarding this topic or overall?
No, it's you have the floor. So whatever you want us to know, we want to hear.
Thank you, sir. Well, good morning to everybody. And as always, it's impactful to hear the stories that we just heard. I'm going to go backwards because in my notes, I had the specific topic that the 2 speakers spoke about. And to my knowledge, this is what's been done. So if anybody on the commission has any counter information, please let me know so I can go back and follow up and follow through. So the background, back in 2021, there was a series of OIG reports and Board of Supervisor motions on the issue of preventing harassment of mourners at vigils. Back in 2020, the department issued a policy which was amended in 2022 that addressed memorials, vigils, and the newsletter makes it very clear and the points that I have here, that the public absolutely has a First Amendment right to be present at these sites. Two, if a calls for service is received, a supervisor should respond. Three, absent a call for service, deputies may not be necessary at the site unless there is a compelling public safety reason. And then number four, department members should continue to provide policing services to the entire community while displaying and maintaining empathy towards the individuals in attendance. That was what we had updated as of 2022, according to department records.
Any questions or comments?
Do you need the
Hans?
Do you need the mic?
Do you believe that that policy is adequate, given the tenor and the specificity of the remarks that go beyond the situation of mourning that we heard from testimony this morning, and the duration of harassment and the evidence provided of specific incidents, including in Ms. Luna's comments this morning?
I'd have to research and look at the allegations and see what the time was. And as always, if we're not following policy, then we need to hold people accountable if that's in case the fact, if that is the fact, I should say.
Is this morning's testimony the only evidence of systemic harassment of a surviving family that you or the department is aware of?
Commissioner, I'd have to go back and look at every complaint that's been filed. And again, to look at each one of them and then bring that forward.
Anyone else?
Well, I can just speak to OIG's involvement in this. So we did do a report in November of 2020, and then we did a subsequent report in July of 2021. And the Board of Supervisors did direct that there be a policy, a report from the Sheriff's Department with regard to an updated policy. We had interactions with the department in December of 2021, where we reviewed the newsletter that was in draft form at that time. And we sent a letter to Commander Yeager on December 3rd of 2021. We were supposed to engage in discussions about the policy, but as far as I know, I have not seen the policy since December of 2021 and was not aware that the department had in fact adopted a policy through a newsletter. Originally, it was told to us it would be a newsletter and a FOSS. We obviously think that it should be put in the manual of policy and procedure rather than just a newsletter, because obviously the manual of policy and procedure is the guide that covers all department activities, and specifically also refers to the fact that there are disciplinary actions that are contained in the guide for discipline. So as far as I indicated, as far as we knew, we didn't continue discussions. So I don't know if the recommendations in our December 3rd letter were implemented by the department or not. I can say that at the end of 2022, we sent the Sheriff's Department a validation draft of our report card. And according to that, I believe that we indicated in that report card that nothing had been done. So, and these are limited to the memorial sites and vigils and behavior at the memorial sites and vigils. When we did our first report, we did look through all the complaints of harassment at that time, and there were a significant number of complaints. It was not a one-off. So we have not done another look at complaints, but I will also note that the complaint form, it's very limited what boxes you can check off, and there's a lot of inconsistencies in what's checked off on that box. And so what one person checks box for harassment, somebody might check it for something else. And so it's hard without some detailed instructions on how to use what's called the Watch Commander Service comment report forms. It's very difficult to gather the data without a set set rules for how to make sure that the complaints are being recorded properly. There also should probably be more boxes on that form because it's very limited as to what boxes can be checked off and how the complaints are categorized.
Is it normal, Dara, that there would be a LASD policy that's not in the manual of policy and procedures?
Yes, there are FODs, which are field, you can help me here. FOS stands for something, and field office directives is another one. There's unit level orders. There's a number of different things. And sometimes there'll be, for instance, a unit order that's only adopted by that unit. This is something that we've recommended not happen. There should be uniform policies for an entire department, not for a specific unit. And newsletters, I think there is a compilation of them, but it's my belief that most deputies would look to the manual of policy and procedures, to make a determination as to what should guide their behavior. So having it in one uniform place is much better to inform employees what policies and procedures they should be following.
Anyone else? Sheriff, we kind of interrupted you.
And just to, if there's no other questions about this specific item, it sounds like we have to go back and make sure that we have the adequate, whether it's direction, policy, whatever that may be. We'll continue to work with the IG's office to make sure that we're communicating with them. Because as I look at the timelines, it's been a while since I looked at this. I know that you and I had a discussion several days ago about this. And just so there's an understanding, as any questions come up about policies, in the last year, there is an extensive review of all of our policies, our processes, our training. There's so many things that we're going through, which includes the gang policy, the use of force policy, hate crimes policy, just to name a few, because we have, I'm going to use the word flooded. It may not be appropriate. Our labor organizations with policy modifications that we are trying to implement. Our Office of Constitutional Policing is very busy these days in trying to do that. But use of force still remains at the top of that, as well as our gang policy. So obviously, it sounds like we may need to add this one on there as well. I have to go back and look at that a little bit deeper.
Yes, Rob.
Maybe a flood of policies, but it's the job of the sheriff prioritize which policies need to be forward and move forward with the priorities. And in that context, Sheriff, I believe that the recommendations put forward, and specifically the recommendation put forward by this commission to eliminate deputy gangs and cliques, needs to move forward. So that needs to be prioritized, and it needs to be brought to conclusion. You know, it's the sheriff that runs the sheriff's department, not ALADS, right? So we've just got to get that moving, because there has to be a policy that can be then enforced and disciplined on, and it has to be a policy that actually is going to actually eradicate deputy cliques, gangs, exclusionary subgroups within the sheriff's department. Now, having said that, what I really wanted to comment on is that you're right, we would be throwing another policy in there, but I actually think that this commission, the chair can decide which committee, maybe it's the ad hoc committee on gangs, because I think retaliation against families actually is related to the gang issue, deputy gang issue. But I think perhaps we might move faster, at least getting a draft policy of what's necessary into the manual than just leaving it to the department and negotiations with ALAD. So what I'm proposing to the chair is that the chair consider essentially asking a committee of this commission to draft a policy that would make clear that it is a disciplinable offense for any deputy sheriff to harass particularly a family member of somebody that's been killed by the sheriff's department. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. And if you have that policy and then there is harassment and it can be proven through the disciplinary process, you can terminate that deputy. Right now, you can't do that because there's no policy specific to this. So I think, it's incumbent upon this commission, not even imposing this on the sheriff. It's incumbent on the commission to at least draft a policy, submit it to the sheriff, hopefully have a discussion with the sheriff about it and get it move forward and adopt it. So that's my proposal. That's my suggestion. I guess if there were a question there was,
Yeah.
Sheriff, would that be helpful if the commission actually drafted a policy? I mean, we actually have, we've heard the complaints here probably.
For years.
Almost, yeah, for 6 years now. And I would say at every other meeting, there's a member of the public, it's a family member whose family member has been killed. I'm not saying that it could be justified. In many cases, I'm sure, it was, an in policy within the Constitution shooting. I don't know. I'm not examining every case here. Some of them may not be. Apparently, some of them aren't because the county council recommends to the Board of Supervisors huge amounts in settlements. So, I mean, they can't all be justified if we're paying that kind of money, if the taxpayers of this county are paying money. But that's maybe my logic is flawed there. I don't know. But the point is that, that just shouldn't happen. I know you agree it shouldn't happen, but there has to be a policy and it has to be, it's not that the language isn't negotiated with the union. They're allowed to look at the language. I was the head of 3 federal law enforcement agencies. I had unions to deal with. And if I had a policy, I presented it to them so they could comment, unless it was an emergency that had to be implemented. But I presented it to them. They commented on it, and then I adopted the policy that I thought was right. Sometimes they had some valuable comments that were helpful, and sometimes they didn't. But it was my job. People were going to look to me, not to the union, as to whether there's a problem within my agency. They're never going to look at ALADS, and ALADS has been part of the problem here with deputy gangs and deputy cliques. It has been part of the problem historically. That's why they still exist, because they defend them, they protect them, and so forth. That's a fact. And maybe they've changed. I've seen no evidence of that, but that's a fact as far as I'm concerned. Historical record. By the way, this is laid out in our report and recommendations as well, which we submitted to you back in, I think, in January of this year. And we're still here. I mean, there's meet and confer. In my experience, this is federal government. It was a month or two. We didn't give them more than a month to comment on the policy. And then we move forward with what we thought the policy should be. And I would like to see that. And maybe that's, there's something I'm missing here, but I don't know why it takes, 8, 9, 10 months to get a policy adopted. If you want to comment, please do.
If we're talking about the gang policy, because there's a couple policies here you're talking about, the harassment that's been described, the allegations of harassment, that can be looked into. That's what I got to go back and look at. And if there's misconduct there, and it can be proven, then the employees will be held accountable. I don't need a separate policy for that. If there is harassment going on and it's proved, we already have existing policies that deal with it. Just like if we're talking about certain deputy gang activity, if there's misconduct, that will be investigated. There are some that are being investigated now that I'm not at liberty to talk about here publicly, because at the end of the day, the primary goal is, if the allegations are true, is to hold the employees accountable in the right venue. Having this discussion publicly, I know is necessary, but we have to be cautious. Just like you talk about the meet and confer process with the gang policy. Yeah, I'm frustrated, but again, and I repeat this, we're in the state of California. We're going through the meet and confer process. I'm not going to get into detail because our meetings are recorded and the things that you say and I say or we say may negatively impact this when it goes to court. And there's a high likelihood it would, whether I like it, you like it or not, it may end up in court.
Sure.
And then at the end of the day, we get nothing like we've had for many years. That's what I'm trying to change. I'm trying to do this the right way. I'm not focused on getting headlines. I'm focused on changing a culture to once and for all do this the right way. And being in a hurry is not the right way of doing it. So sorry if I sound passionate, but I'm very invested in trying to make the changes. And I get it. We want this done, but I can't just walk in there and say, this is what it is, because we're going to end up in court and then we're not going to get anything done. Just like we did on the issue with tattoos in support of the Inspector General's office. Look where we're at on that. And I asked for employees to come forward, show their tattoos. Where's it at today? It's in court. When is that going to be resolved? So sorry for the frustration. I know you're frustrated. I know every member on this commission is frustrated. Everyone in this audience is frustrated, but there is some level of progress.
Yeah, let me just say, Sheriff, though, you sound like the court is it's the end of the world to go to court. No, some of these things you're going to have to go to court on. I mean, you will have to go to court on them. If you want to be the sheriff who, after 30 to 40 to 50 years, gets rid of deputy cliques and gangs within the department, you're probably going to have to go to court. And that's not the end of the world. It's going to take time, but this problem has been around. It's endemic. It's a cancer on the sheriff's department, and it's going to take court action, I think. I don't think ALADS is just going to say, oh no, we'll agree to the policies here. They'll agree maybe to some of them because they have to. One's embodied in state law. They have no argument whatsoever on deputy gangs. It's part of the state statute. But they'll argue the other things, that deputy cliques, as we've defined them, they're going to make an argument that, oh, you can't do that. Well, you can do that, but we're going to have to litigate it. Yes.
But
and it may take 2 or 3 years, but you're going to win that lawsuit if you have good lawyers anyway.
And that's what we hope, right? But you know, as a judge, with all your experience, what happens in between there? An injunction is given and you can't do anything. We're frozen. I don't want that to happen. I want to try and accomplish something that hasn't been accomplished in the history of this department. And we are doing this together.
But you're not going to accomplish it, in my opinion, if you allow ALADS to dictate the terms of
ALADS
the
is not
policies.
dictating the
Okay,
terms.
that's what I'm concerned
They are
about.
not.
And if you say, because if they say, we're going to sue you, the sheriff's department, we're going to sue the county for an injunction, and you say, okay, we won't use that language, that's a problem for me, because there are certain things they're probably not going to agree to that we've recommended that just need to be done. And that's the point I hope we've made. The only other point on I was talking about two different things.
If you don't mind, let me just say
No,
this.
go
You
ahead.
say that they're not going to dictate the terms, but we are at a table, and I'm very encouraged by what I hear and the progress that's being made. Yes, it may be going slow, but they are a willing participant in this, where everybody thinks they are not. And I want to give them credit for staying at the table, being at the table, and actually offering suggestions, very good ones, as we work through this together. That has to happen in a department with a culture, and that's very well documented. So,
But from my perspective, and I could be wrong because we're not part of this process. We think the Oversight Commission actually needs to be part of this process, but the point is that it appears to me, from my perspective, and I won't speak for the commission here, but ALADS is essentially stalling us out here until this issue sort of fades into the background. And we can't allow that to happen. We're not going to allow that to happen. So that's what I see here, because this is a very, very lengthy meet and confer process, at least in my experience. And even I think from the county point of view, Sheriff Villanueva adopted his policy in 30 days. It didn't work because it focused only on the misconduct. There had to be misconduct. You could not just being in a deputy clique, you had to be engaged in misconduct. Well, you could always discipline for misconduct, for excessive use of force. You've got to get at the group here, and you've got to have a policy that eliminates these exclusionary subgroups cliques, gangs, call them what you will. It's not, it can't be tied to misconduct. If you tie it to misconduct, you can always discipline for misconduct. What you've got to do is you have to create disincentives for people joining or soliciting others to join deputy cliques as they have been defined in the policy that the COC put forward to you. Now, just one other point. I want to get off gangs for just a second. Yes, if there's harassment of any citizen under certain circumstances, yes, you can investigate and discipline through internal affairs and the disciplinary process. But maybe you need a specific policy here, right? Because it's not happening. So a specific policy that goes beyond just harassing just any person out there, which is, and again, what's harassment is a kind of a vague term, but harassment where there is harassment of people who have lost a loved one, that seems to be more serious to me. And there may need to be a specific policy on this because it seems to be, and I don't know, look, I try to be open-minded about it, but I have heard so many tales now of harassment of family members who have lost loved ones that it's of concern to me. And you may just need a specific policy. And I know you're going to look into that and you'll determine whether you do need a specific policy. But I think we're the Oversight Commission here. We hope we can help you sometimes. All I'm suggesting, and this is really to Chair Kennedy, is that we look into it and perhaps draft a policy ourselves and present it to the sheriff. And by the way, have a discussion with you first. We do think we should, make sure we're not jamming you on something that would actually perhaps be counterproductive. But so we want to discuss it with you, but we might want to, I think at this point, we should draft a policy, a proposed policy on the harassment of families of people that have been killed by by a deputy, whether justified or not.
Well, I think I'm going to assign that task to the ad hoc committee on deputy gangs. Yeah, you're right. We've been hearing about this since the beginning. Under three different sheriffs, and almost always the allegation is in conjunction with an allegation that they're a tattooed law enforcement gang member. So I'm going to have that ad hoc draft a policy and we'll submit it, Sheriff, to you to see what you think. And hopefully it will prompt some engagement. Go ahead, Hans. But I want to give the sheriff time to say everything he wants to say to us. But go ahead.
I just want to say that we are coming up on the Thanksgiving holiday, and we are also coming up on the 1-year anniversary of your inauguration. And words that we have heard today, that a family has been living in a sense of constant retaliation, and that in a constant belief that we can be next, those are haunting words. Those are haunting, truthful words spoken from the heart that echo those statements of other family members that have testified here before. And I am extremely nervous when I hear you say we have existing policies on harassment, and that may cover the kind of evidence that we have heard or that you need to look into. And I want to be very clear that it is the policies and it is the sentiment of this commission that very clear policies are needed in these areas. And I'm very glad to see action moving to do that. But I also want to express the interest, my interest at least, and I believe that may be relevant to the comments heard earlier, of bringing an ALADS representative before this commission to answer, to ask questions, and to be accountable in a future setting. Because accountability from this commission is not limited simply to the policies of the department, but if there are obstacles being raised to the enactment of those policies, we can exert accountability in that area as well. But I want to note these important anniversaries coming up of family gathering, of families reflecting on lost loved ones, from Day of the Dead on forward through Thanksgiving and the holiday season, and the one-year anniversary of your inauguration in early December coming forward. We're hoping for progress that's substantive and concrete.
You want to finish, Sheriff?
Yes, please. I do have several things that I wanted to run by the commission. You did start talking about it, so I'm going to digress from some of the conversation here. This week, as many of you are aware, we did lose 4 employees to suicide. Unfortunately, counting the retiree, it's number 9 for us this year. Obviously, it has a direct impact on the individuals, their families who are grieving the most. So my deepest, sincerest sympathies to all of them. Most of them, some of them I've talked to personally myself this week, including their children. Psychological Services Bureau, psychologists, chaplains, and peer support responded to the respective units, facilities, and homes to offer support and resources to the families, department members, and friends that were directly impacted by these events. Now, as I go on with these talking points, why is this important? Because as we're prioritizing policies, processes, personnel, and many of the things that we're working on in the department, employee wellness continues to be at the very top of the list. Because if you look at a lot of the issues that we've spent the last 30 minutes talking about, you can directly correlate them to employee wellness for a variety of reasons. So if our priority, along with gaining the public trust and impacting crime and quality of life, homelessness, modernizing the department, is if we're not putting out healthy employees mentally, we can't serve this community the way we should. And maybe some of the things we've heard today, you can directly say this is probably part of it. It may or it may not, because there's obviously people who are hurting. So this is very, very important. So as we move forward with this, we've sent out department-wide messages to everyone encouraging them to seek assistance if needed, to take advantage of our Psychological Services Bureau, which is available 24/7, and also encourage them to see peer counselors that we have available to them, and we're currently assessing to see if we need more. In August of 2023, the Psychological Services Bureau partnered with the Risk Management Bureau to form a suicide prevention campaign within the department. The committee was established to ensure information and resources are available so our department members in person, virtually, or via email, and by posting suicide prevention resource posters throughout the department. Sadly, the issue of suicides is not just an LASD problem. I sat in an early presentation yesterday where suicide continues to be the leading cause of death within law enforcement. So it's a crisis across the country, not just with LASD. I am working internally to overcome the stigma of seeking help. A lot of our deputies believe if they come forward that we're going to automatically just take their powers away, take their guns away. That's not always the case. So we are working even within our own disciplinary systems to identify the employees who need the help the most, and working with other entities. So as we deal with this tragedy, I'll keep you updated because it is very important for the members of our department as they face the daily trauma of the kind of work that they do every day that most of the time isn't spoken about to anybody. Other recent events, I attended the CLC Community Policing Conference, as many of you did. We not only attended, but a large number of our deputies attended. And from the feedback we got, it was very much appreciated. Opportunity to speak with community representatives. So I thank you all for that opportunity. Other community updates, I do want to thank Lieutenant Melanie Rivers and Sergeant Ray Hicks, who are sitting in the front row, They've been working their tails off in putting together many meetings that we have. And these meetings, gathering the right people in the room, people who always aren't in support of us. So we're getting some really good feedback in these breakout groups that we've done. We just had one on Monday night, a very successful one up in the city of Lancaster. We've previously done one in Palmdale, Compton, South LA, and we plan on being in East Los Angeles here tonight. And there are many others that we'll be planning, so we're very active in those areas as we move forward. And again, very proud of my team and what they're doing. The only other update we have, and again, there's progress, and I want to make sure everybody knows there's progress. Just this week, we identified the second captains in the Palmdale station. So now we have 3 stations, Palmdale, Lancaster, and East Los Angeles, that have 2 captains in them. And that is a huge move forward for us. We're still adjusting as time goes on. But that's a big plus for us. So again, I thank you for your patience as we take these baby steps forward at the end of the day. And that's the end of my report for today.
Thank you. So we'll move on to other reports. The chair's report is next. In the interest of time, I'm just going to focus on one issue of concern. There was extensive press coverage regarding a settlement of a anticipated lawsuit by a revered public radio reporter, Josie Wong, who tried to film deputies making an arrest on September 12th, 2020. She identified herself as a reporter and was wearing a lanyard that had her press credentials. Despite that, unnamed deputies slammed her to the ground, arrested her, stomped on her phone, and left it on the ground after they put her in a patrol car. Because of her injuries, she went to the hospital and then spent the night in jail, and was the department asked that she be prosecuted for obstructing an officer in their duties. The district attorney declined to prosecute that, and a judge of the Superior Court found Josie Wong, to no surprise, was factually innocent. Despite this scenario, the department found the use of force against her to be, quote, objectively reasonable, and that it, quote, raised no concerns, unquote. And reading the article, it reminded me that Josie Wong is not the first journalist to experience this, and I was just wondering if there are, but for the fact that Josie Wong, I think this was out of the Linwood station, but for the fact that Josie Wong had a phone recording it that was left on the ground and another reporter came and found it, she wouldn't have any way of proving that the deputies were falsely representing the situation. And I was just wondering and we also heard from Stephanie Luna today about not allowing people to record sometimes. Is there a policy regarding journalists recording arrests or protests that exists right now? Do we have one? Do you know that, Sheriff, or Holly?
I'm going to say yes. It's to me, it's almost common sense that if you are, first of all, what was the date of this incident, please?
It's prior to your time, Sheriff. It's September 12th, 2020.
September 12th, 2020. Okay. And you're saying that the settlement just occurred?
Yes, the Board of Supervisors Tuesday offered, I guess, agreed to pay $700,000. She hadn't even filed the lawsuit yet. It's because of anticipation of the lawsuit. I guess they thought it was so clear that the board settled for $700,000. A press committee represented her.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and look at that as well. I'd love to know what happened. Considering it was about 3 years ago, we should still have all the records and figure out what the interaction was like. Obviously, it does shock the conscience a little bit when you have a reporter who was treated that way. That's not something you want to hear about. It's not the way we train our people. But I don't know what happened in the interaction, so it's unfair for me to talk about specifics without knowing.
Well, that's fair. I just bring it up because if there is a policy, I'm not aware of it. And so I thought that the use of force ad hoc committee maybe could engage with your people about this issue to see if there's a policy.
100%.
Because Josie Wong, she didn't deserve to be treated the way that she did. She was reporting the news in a free society where we authorize the law enforcement to arrest people and use violence against suspects in our name, including fatally shooting them. It is essential that the free press be able to report fully on that. And in this particular scenario, it just really is very troubling at every level that it happened, that the department thought that that was objectively reasonable and that they had no concerns about that situation. And those are quotes. It's just, it's a bad situation. So
It's also worth noting that there was a false cover story developed to justify actions against Josie Wong. And I want to point out that recurring pattern of false justifications being used to excuse misconduct. It's a particularly egregious aspect of this case.
So I think it's fair, Sheriff, to say like, you know, you don't want to comment, I just bring it up. Well, I'll have the ad hoc committee on use of force.
Well, for
Engage.
clarification, I'm not saying I don't want to comment on it. I don't want to comment on it here now because I don't have I want to report to you facts, not what I'm reading in the paper or somewhere else. I want to know what department records say so I can give you facts of what happened.
That's what I meant. I mean, and a lot of the facts are contained in a document that was submitted to the Board of Supervisors Tuesday in support of the settlement. Dara, I don't know if you have anything to say about this or.
Well, I will say that one of OIG employees just texted me that MPP 3-01/080.16 covers photography, audio, and videotaping by the public and the press. So I don't know what the policy is, but there is a policy. I have to go back because I'm flipping through things on my phone here. But in our report card at the end of the year, last year, we went through the recommendations previously made and did note that there are many videos available publicly that show Sheriff's Department deputies actively discouraging people from videotaping, including asking them to step back from areas where step back farther than need be when looking at the video. In other words, they're not obstructing, interfering, or doing anything with regard to the conduct of the sheriff's deputies. They're simply filming. I believe there's a video online that showed a sheriff's deputy pointing a flashlight at a member of the press so that it would distort any video that the person was trying to capture their conduct on. And so it's not just that there's a policy, the problem is also the culture that deputies feel that it's appropriate to discourage people from taking videos by asserting their authority in ways that's improper under the situation.
Well,
Can we get a copy of that policy, please? I would really like to read it because I have had friends whose phone was thrown to the ground or their video cam was taken. So I would personally like to read that policy that you just mentioned on your phone.
We can absolutely provide you a copy, but just so everybody knows, those policies are all online. They're accessible to the entire community, so it's right there in black and white as to what we should and shouldn't be doing. And yeah, I don't think there's anyone here in the room in law enforcement that thinks that behavior is acceptable. So I have to make sure that we're reinforcing our policies. But again, you always want to go back and look because somebody says it, and yes, it does happen once in a while. But then there's other occasions where somebody's filming and in a sense, agitating the situation. And just the mere fact that somebody's taping me should not agitate me. Just the mere fact that somebody's being arrested should not agitate anybody. If you are in a place where you should be, then, go for it. You got to do what you got to do. But if you're literally interfering, there's a difference. And I get it. We've got to look at each one of those because we don't want somebody saying that's happening when it's not. But at the same time, I don't want to send a message that if there is a lawful, reasonable event going on where the deputies are involved in a chaotic situation, then everyone jumping in, videotaping is going to either help or make the situation worse. So got to find a balance.
I do.
I would just, excuse me, but I just, on that point, let's not ask the sheriff to provide the policy. I think staff could provide it to the commission, and that would be the appropriate way to proceed. Excuse me. Go ahead.
I do just want to note that someone filming at the Lancaster Shopping Center parking lot was tackled by a deputy, and that was an aggravating circumstance of one of the most outrageous incidents of this calendar year at the Winco in Lancaster. And as Dara in the OIG's office has indicated, this is a recurring issue. And unfortunately, some of the video evidence indicates people well outside of the sphere of engagement are being assailed and are being obstructed in their First Amendment rights to document interactions with sheriff's deputies.
Well, this is the beginning of a discussion. So I just want to introduce it as a discussion, and my request is that the Use of Force Committee review this policy that I'll just be honest, I didn't know about, as to the press, and see whether or not we think it's an appropriate policy, because the reality is that someone applying this policy, this part of the policy, thought that this was all okay. Someone at the department thought that this was okay, that it was objectively reasonable use of force and that they had no concerns. And then a judge of the Superior Court, found her factually innocent when she wasn't even charged with anything. And the Board of Supervisors settled it for $700,000 without a lawsuit filed. So something is wrong here. And I appreciate the use of force ad hoc with the staff, engaging with the Sheriff's Department to see how this policy is working out and whether there are any other things we can do to make sure that reporters can safely report the news about the department, which is so important to a democracy. That's all I have. The next thing would be our executive director's report. Our very able executive director, Danielle Butler-Vapi. She's not here right now because she has a whole other job. I'm told another executive director is on their way, so we'll just table that and move to the Office of Inspector General in case you have anything to report. Dara, if not, no problem.
No, we should have a number of reports coming out towards the end of this year, and we do intend to publish a report card on recommendations made this year, as well as a comprehensive report card on previous recommendations that we've made that may not have been yet addressed by the current sheriff's administration. And I did email the MPP to you, Sean, and to Commissioner Bonner because your two emails were easy to find. So you should have it to disseminate. Thank you.
Thank you. So now, does any commissioner have an ad hoc committee update that they want to give?
I want to give an update, and it is partly ad hoc committee, and it's partly just getting back to the full commission on the subject of the commission subpoenas of former Sheriff Alex Villanueva and former Under Sheriff Timothy Murakami as part of the COC's continuing and ongoing investigation into deputy gangs, deputy cliques, and exclusionary subgroups within the Sheriff's Department. Notwithstanding the delay in having an appearance from those two individuals, we continue to seek the testimony of Alex Villanueva and his undersheriff as part of the COC's ongoing investigation. And as noted some time ago, our investigation is
Excuse me, can we all,
we have a meeting
Please.
going on here.
there's a meeting going on.
Okay.
Excuse me, everyone, please, there is a meeting going on. If you could just if you mind holding it down, please, thank you.
Sean?
Yeah, I started this meeting talking about how we have hard-hitting conversations and that we're going to be professional. We're going to be frank, but we're going to be professional. So I understand there's disagreement with the sheriff not staying for the entire meeting, and I respect that. Okay, I don't.
Michelle, please, this is not a question and answer section. If you could just,
But
Okay.
let's engage, because I wanna say that, this commission has been around for almost 7 years, and I think has a certain amount of bona fides that we are committed to letting this community speak the truth to the sheriff's department. And many times we actually side with the community and pressure the board of supervisors to do things that they don't have the stomach for. But we do it. But part of the reason that gets done is because we all respect each other. And so if that's in the nature of a complaint, I'm going to keep that narrative up, because I just think the conversations that occur here are really important. And the only way they occur is if we all treat each other like real people, because Sheriff Villanueva, he just stopped coming because he couldn't deal with the reality of what happens here. Go ahead, Rob.
All right. Maybe take it from the top here. I was trying to address the issue with respect to the commission subpoenas of former Sheriff Alex Villanueva and his undersheriff Timothy Murakami, and to state that notwithstanding the delay that's taken place in terms of enforcing these subpoenas, this commission continues to seek the testimony of Villanueva and Murakami as part of the COC's ongoing and continuing investigation into deputy gangs, deputy cliques, and exclusionary subgroups. As noted some time ago, at one of our special hearings on deputy gangs, our investigation is still open, and we left it open specifically so at some point in time, Villanueva and Murakami would either appear and testify before this commission or held in contempt for failure to do so, and either fined or imprisoned until they appear and testify before the commission. By the way, I will say for the record that the commission has always contemplated the potential for calling other witnesses besides these two, as the investigation from time to time needs to be updated. But after Villanueva and Murakami's testimony, let me just state that we expect, I speak for the commission here, we expect that the special counsel for the Civilian Oversight Commission will augment his report that he submitted to the to this commission back in, I believe it was back in January of this year. We continue to need the testimony from Alex Villanueva and Timothy Murakami, even though they are no longer in the sheriff's department. We subpoenaed both of them in their individual capacities, and both have knowledge of important questions raised during the Oversight Commission's investigation. For example, they have knowledge as whether or not deputy cliques and gangs exist within the sheriff's department. Indeed, Villanueva has stated when he was sheriff that there were no deputy gangs in the sheriff's department. Well, we'd like to hear that testimony. That's and particularly his basis for making such a statement. There's the question of whether Alex Villanueva's policy that he adopted in February 2020 that prohibited cliques, but only if you engaged in misconduct, the very thing we were talking to Sheriff Luna about, whether it was effective or not. And if it was effective, how many deputies were investigated under that policy? How many deputies were disciplined under that policy imposed? In other words, was that an effective policy? We're entitled to know that. We recommend policy to the sheriff's department, and we're entitled to his testimony on these issues. And by the way, those are just by way of example. I don't mean to be exclusive here, but to say that that's exclusively what we want. But Villanueva and Murakami have relevant testimony for this commission, and it's been delayed and blocked by efforts through those two individuals, particularly Alex Villanueva. We've already been delayed now 2 years in getting their testimony. Those subpoenas they should have appeared and testified before this commission 2 years ago, but they refused to do so. They declined to do so, and we need to get their testimony without further delay. And we need the Superior Court to order both of them, pursuant to the recent Court of Appeals decision, to order both of them to appear and testify at our next hearing. I also want to make a comment. So that's a statement that I think is important to make, and important for the commission to make in terms of further action to enforce the subpoena. But I want to make one other point about enforcement of the subpoenas on Villanueva and Murakami, and that is that at our last meeting on October 19th. We directed the county council to proceed forthwith with a petition to Superior Court to order Villanueva and Murakami to testify before the commission. We ordered that be done forthwith. We requested that, directed that be done forthwith at our next meeting. Well, this is our next meeting, and there's no petition for an order to show cause that's been filed in the Superior Court to order Villanueva and Murakami to appear before the commission. So I'm not quite sure. I just don't know what part of forthwith that the county council doesn't understand. We wanted to have them here, at least try to get them here, and you can't do that without a petition being filed in Superior Court. So let's get the petition filed. And let's get it filed promptly so that at least they're ordered to appear by a Superior Court judge at our next meeting in December. It's about 5 weeks from now. And I would request of county council that they give us the timeline by which they expect the petition to order Villanueva and Murakami to appear before this commission. When is that going to be filed?
Well, we have a representative right here, so maybe we can get specifics, because Rob, it's not for lack of trying.
Yep. Do you know when that'll be filed?
Yeah, good morning. The outside counsel on it that you guys are familiar with, Barb, is drafting it, and we can figure it out.
Yeah, give her a mic. I can't hear you.
Hi, good morning. Yes, the outside counsel who has been on those matters, Harv, you guys are familiar with him. He is drafting the petitions, and we hope to share a copy of that for your guys' review next week. My name is Amara Kirby. Thank you.
But Harv, he reports to you, not to us. And although we looked at county council to represent the commission with respect to enforcing our subpoena, and so I would expect county council to say I can't remember Harv's last name, but the outside counsel, and say, we'd like you to get this filed and give them a timeline and tell us what that is. And apparently we just, you hire people, you don't just say, well, when you get around to it, would you file this petition? You actually say to your lawyer, the lawyers for the county, you give them directions. I mean, I find it somewhat mind-boggling that you can't tell us at least when outside counsel is going to have been directed to file it. Maybe he's going to be delayed. I don't know, but you need to give him you have to give him a timeline. So what timeline has Harv been given?
We told them that we want to file it as quickly as we can.
Okay.
Okay, so I look forward to next week. And I mean, we're still waiting on the MOU, which was September's meeting. So it's, Rob, this is where we are.
Yeah, but I would say this, though, let's just make clear. I mean, we enacted two motions. Excuse me, sir, I'm speaking, I'm on the commission.
Yeah.
We enacted two motions. One was that we had an ongoing investigation. We needed Villanueva and Murakami's testimony. That was the last meeting. And then secondly, that county council moved forthwith to file a petition for an order to show cause to compel or to order the appearance at our next meeting. That didn't happen. It is our request of county council, to the extent you're representing this commission, it is our instruction to county council to get that petition filed, not just as soon as possible, but within a week, so that we can get their testimony at our next hearing, which is December. Staff, can you tell us when the next hearing is going to be? December what?
December 14th.
December 14th, 2023. We want an order from the Superior Court that they be required to appear and testify before this commission on December 14th, 2023 at 9 a.m. And I mean, get that file. And if you don't get it filed within the next 2 weeks, they'll say, well, they don't have time enough to prepare it, et cetera, et cetera. So let's get it filed.
I think you speak for the whole commission when you say that this needs to be done. I don't understand why county council is so unresponsive to this commission. Sheriff Villanueva's county-funded lawyer seems extremely responsive to him and his litigation needs. We're just hobbled by this situation over and over again. Okay, thank you. Any other ad hocs? Otherwise, we can move on. All right. We actually have a member of the Sybil Brand Commission here, Professor Eric Miller, a colleague of mine at Loyola Law School, is on the commission. And for the past 3 meetings, you've been on the agenda, and I just wanted to know, Eric, if you have anything you want to say to us about jail custody and the commission's difficult work.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Kennedy, for inviting me up here. I'll try and be relatively brief. The commission has, I'm sure you know, sent a letter to the Board of Supervisors that details a number of worrying conditions at the jails, especially focused on the Inmate Reception Center, Twin Towers, Men's Central Jail, but also Central Regional Detention Facility, where we found that the women in that jail, especially Black women, were subject to racial discrimination. We've been particularly focused in the last few meetings on jail deaths, which are extremely high this year. And have received some attention from the LA Times and other local media. Our letter to the Board of Supervisors and our reports to the Sheriff's Department have highlighted effectively 3 features. One is the paucity of mental health treatment for people in Twin Towers and Men's Central Jail, but also we found issues in the Pitches facility, especially Pitches North, and a deeply worrying understaffing in the jails. And so 40% of positions are unfilled according to Correctional Health Services, which results in what the head of Correctional Health Services has acknowledged are unconstitutional conditions in the downtown jails. The second thing that we have focused on is sanitary issues in the jails. So in not the most recent meeting, but the one before, the reports were quite detailed in the presence of vermin and feces in the jails that made the jails deeply unsanitary. That's not the first time that we've had to report about sanitation conditions. And the jail staff, the deputies have often refused to clean out jail cells when dirtied by people with mental health problems. They rely effectively on trustees and sometimes outside cleaners and have provided reports that suggest that the process of cleaning jail cells is lacking and that they need to do more to keep those cells clean. And as you can imagine, with a population that is now moving actually in Twin Towers, but also in Men's Central Jail to housing people with increasing numbers of people with mental health problems. So many of the cells are now medium observation housing. Lack of sanitation can have a major impact on people with mental health in those conditions. We've also found that the dorms in Men's Central Jail, but also in Pitches North are overcrowded, and that the policy limits the dorms to 64 people per dormitory, whereas the actual number is often in excess of 80, and we observed over 90 people in Men's Central Jail on the 5,000 block, with people being triple bunked in ways that make it impossible for jail staff to observe what's going on in those dormitories. In part because the bunks, you can't see around the corners. They're sort of a U-shaped set of triple bunks with a set of bunks down the middle. And that then leads to the fourth issue that we've observed, which is the failure to adequately monitor people in the jail when doing rounds. And so we have, for the last, I think, 6 months, raised the issue of jail staff deputies who go around. They have an electronic device now that they click. It's a QR code, and that shows that they have gone around each cell. But our commissioners have observed that the deputies rarely look inside the cells in Twin Towers to check what's happening. Similar series of events seems to go on in Men's Central Jail, and that is part of what we think contributes to some of the problems with jail deaths. So, for example, a recent report of a death in the 5,000 block of Men's Central Jail, which we as commissioners have been to repeatedly raised problems about, showed that an inmate there was assaulted in a shower, which should actually be easily observable from the sheriff's position in the in their observation booth. And he was so badly assaulted that he died, but he died 4 hours later in a medium observation housing unit in which the sheriff should have been seeing him, I think, every 30 minutes at least. It may be more frequent than that. So that means that had the sheriff done their job, they would have seen this person 8 times before he died. And that did not happen. Part of the problem as well is that the staff do not watch the monitors to observe individuals in the jails, but instead watch ESPN or movies. And we have repeatedly raised that issue with the sheriff. The sheriff's department. The sheriff's department has said that they are now that's against policy, that they are now trying to enforce blackouts so that you can't get outside programs in the jails. I will say that once when I was doing a round of the jails, we had a person, when we checked in, it was clear that the sheriff was not really watching the monitors. I think they had ESPN or CNN or something on in the background. An inmate then had a seizure while we were walking around, and had we not been there, the sheriff would have done nothing. We ran down to the sheriff's deputy office and told him about the seizure, and it was only when we alerted the person to the seizure, that the deputy to the seizure, that anything was done. So, so the sheriff has said that they will try and enforce a policy of making sure that the sheriffs are not watching TV instead of checking in on the people incarcerated there, although there has been reports in the press that the sheriffs are now taking in flash drives to watch films rather than the monitors. So all in all, there seems to be a deeply worrying culture in the jails of, in the women's jail, racial discrimination, and in the certainly the downtown jails, but also north, which is north, overcrowding, and then in the downtown jails, a practice, a culture of not adequately supervising people with significant mental illness in the jail system. So that's our report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Miller, for keeping us up to date about the continuing situation in the jails. I hope Sybil Brand Commission will let this commission know what we can do to help you as you try to carry out your Herculean task of reforming and conducting oversight and reforming the jails. That concludes 2, so we have to take some public comment.
Chair Kennedy, if I may, briefly before public comment, just for the commission's consideration, I did hear possibly multiple motions that were made during this section. One, I believe, to direct the ad hoc committee on deputy gangs to draft a policy, a retaliation policy. 2, direct staff to reach out to ALADs to have them come at a future meeting for a presentation. 3, directing the ad hoc committee on use of force to review the MPP on photography in the press and report back to the committee. And 4, any directions to county council re the filing. Just for your consideration. Thanks.
I thought those were all just requests of the chair. Do they require, are you telling me they require a formal vote?
I think it would be a better route or more protected route, but it's just for your guys' consideration.
No one framed it as a motion, so they were suggestions, and it's an internal. So let's move on to public comment, but thank you.
Chair Kennedy, no one has signed up for public comment on this item.
Okay, so we'll move on to item number 3. Patty, I told you I was gonna get to it before you had to leave, which is really, we've already brought it up, the issue of the memorandum of understanding. And, over and over again, just talking broadly, this commission has to do oversight of the sheriff's department, and it has to receive so-called confidential information. The whole commission can't receive confidential information because of our status as a Brown Act entity, but the ad hocs can. And the ad hocs are really the way we achieve our mission of oversight, because the ad hocs drill down on an issue, they get or try to get confidential information. They submit reports to the whole commission, which are debated in front of the public, with the public, and then we adopt them and send them on to the Board of Supervisors for further debate and comment in the political process. But we cannot do that, because every time we seek information, we are told we need a memorandum of understanding between the COC and the Sheriff's Department for the Sheriff's Department to give a COC ad hoc committee confidential information. And we don't have that. And this has really become an issue, because at our special hearings on deputy gangs, Under Sheriff April Tardy told us that the commission thoroughly investigated the situation at the Compton station, where there are just so many allegations that a deputy gang known as the Executioners was engaged in serious misconduct against members of the public. And that after the department conducted its internal investigation of the Executioners, they found that nobody was culpable. Nobody had done anything wrong. So we asked to see that, and we were told we need a memorandum of understanding. And we asked for county council for that memorandum, and we've had nothing but delays. So as Rob stated earlier on, we wrote our own. The ad hoc committee on deputy gangs wrote its own MOU, and we submitted it to county council, and again, delays. And so, we just don't understand why the county council would continue to thwart this commission in its mission to achieve meaningful oversight of the department, including looking at what the department has done to date to investigate deputy gangs and determine whether or not that is significant and real and objective, or whether more needs to be done. So we're like at an impasse. We just don't know what to do. And maybe we've covered it, Rob. You've had a pretty full discussion, but I wanted to open it up to other commissioners, because I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what to do anymore, Patty. I have asked the county council numerous times to do this. I can never get a date certain when it will be done. I'm not sure what the objection to a memorandum of understanding would be. And so we're really not able to provide meaningful oversight regarding this issue.
Could I just be heard briefly on that?
Yes.
Chair Kennedy?
Yes.
And that is just for all the commission, because, we're really able to circulate the draft memorandum of understanding to share and protect confidential information until essentially the agenda for this meeting, right? Because that's the way it works. But now everybody's had a chance to look at it, and I just wanted to say that ultimately, as Chair Kennedy has indicated, after making this request, I think going back several months of county council, we did not receive a proposed MOU that would accomplish the purposes that we'd like to accomplish. So I did draft a proposed MOU, which and by the way, let me go back just one thing. I wanted to correct the agenda in one respect on item 3, and that is, it says that this is a memorandum of understanding permitting the commission to receive confidential documents and information, but it's an MOU that permits ad hoc committees of the commission to receive confidential documents, reports, and information, not the full commission, just for reasons that you stated, because of essentially Brown Act limitations. But there are occasions when the Oversight Commission needs to see reports and information that are privileged or confidential under the Police Officers' Bill of Rights and/or related statutes. One example, at least that's being used, it's a completed investigation. I'm not sure the objection is valid or not, but in any event, it was the investigation of the executioners that was conducted by the Internal Affairs Bureau of the Sheriff's Department, which we've never seen. And it does seem that that's sort of a relevant document that at least the ad hoc committee on deputy gangs should see as part of the overall commission's investigation through special counsel of deputy gangs and deputy cliques. So the MOU that's been drafted here, I want to say it provides a mechanism essentially similar to the MOU originally negotiated by the Office of Inspector General several years ago, a mechanism by which ad hoc committees of the Oversight Commission could receive confidential information. I think you've all had a chance to read this, but the purpose that's stated in the MOU pretty much says it all. The purpose of the MOU is to set forth the protocol for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department to share and provide access to commissioners serving on an ad hoc committee to confidential information as defined below, and for the commissioners on such ad hoc committee of the commission to protect confidentiality of confidential information accessed by them pursuant to this MOU. So that's what the MOU essentially does. It's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward, but it will help us as a commission to have an ad hoc committee look at specific information on occasion that's confidential, but that will help us overall to formulate policy proposals to the Sheriff's Department and the like, which is our job. I would just say, having said that fine, we've sent this to county council. They can review it as long as they want to, but we need to send it to the sheriff and ask him to sign it. And I say that because back about 4 or 5 months ago, when the subject of the executioner's report was raised, the sheriff did indicate that he would be receptive to, provided there was a proper protections and a proper MOU in place, he would be receptive to providing confidential information to the appropriate ad hoc committee of the Oversight Commission. So he's indicated receptivity. I'd like to get it to him and ask him to review it and have his people review it and sign it, so we could actually have a process where confidential information provided to ad hoc committees of the Oversight Commission could be protected. But we could actually access on occasion where we believe we need it, it's relevant to the Oversight Commission's purposes, that information. So I would hope, and I would request, if it hasn't already been done, Chair Kennedy, that, and perhaps this should be done through the chair, but that the MOU, after we discuss it, make any edits or modification the commission thinks is appropriate in discussion here at this meeting, that we then forward that to the sheriff and request that he sign it and implement it.
So Rob, I mean, you're proposing that we move forward without county council because they've had their chance to weigh in and they haven't.
Well, it says that, but really this is between the sheriff and the Oversight Commission anyway. It's not even between county council.
Sure.
The only role they have here is does this adequately protect confidential information? They already have an opinion from outside counsel, Pillsbury, a very fine firm,
Yes,
that this very memorandum of understanding is appropriate, can be done. The sheriff can do this with us. And we can protect the confidential information. We can get the confidential information. They already have a legal opinion on that. They actually paid money to outside counsel to get this legal opinion. That's several months ago. They won't draft the MOU for us, so we've drafted it. But yeah, they have no role here really, other than, of course, they can review it and they should advise us and they should advise the Sheriff's Department. Not that they ever have a conflict of interest there, but they should be advising whether this is, in other words, whether this is an appropriate way to protect confidential information under the statute. But I would note that the OIG did this 5, 6 years ago. Some of them, they don't even use it anymore apparently, but that's okay. You don't have to comment on it. But it's modeled after an agreement that was signed between former Sheriff McDonald and the Office of Inspector General. So anyway, I could have answered your question more simply. I know that, but the reality is county council, they want to advise, they can, but if they don't get us advice, well, then the sheriff, I can't think of any reason. I hope the sheriff won't come up with any reason to not sign this document so that under appropriate circumstances where we can protect and will protect, by the way, that's our duty and obligation to protect confidential information, and we must do that. But we need to move forward with this because there's important information that, as you know, we all know that from time to time, this commission, through its ad hoc committees, has to have some access to in order to intelligently understand the background of the bigger picture.
Yeah, I really appreciate your comments because the commission is receiving information as we sit here today about new deputy gangs or law enforcement gangs that are being identified in the industry station and now in the East LA station and in quarters of the jail. And I'm sure there's much more to come. So like, as we sit and wait for the county council to approve the memorandum of understanding, what's going on? You know, how are members of the public suffering? And the more we know, I think the better our oversight is, as demonstrated by the special hearings, which revealed so much information from witnesses testifying under oath from inside the department. So, you know, for Sheriff Villanueva, the former sheriff, to say there's no such thing as a deputy gang is pretty laughable in light of the fact that members of his own department were testifying that there were deputy gangs. So I think you're right, Rob. I mean, I think moving forward now, we've tried to engage with county council, but maybe we should just move forward and go directly to the sheriff with our memorandum of understanding. Patty, you got something to say?
I think we should.
Okay.
I think it's clear. The pathway is clear. And if they have something to say about it, they can let us know.
So is it a motion that you've made, Rob?
You know, let's treat that as a motion.
Yeah, this one sounds like a motion to me. Do we take the public comment before we vote?
Yes, yes, Chair Kennedy.
Okay, so why don't we take some public comment and then we'll have a vote on this.
So we have one member of the public who has signed up, Donald Harlan.
Hi, I'm Donald Harlan. I'm over here. I came over here to the Sheriff Oversight Commission to leave comment about your memorandum of understanding. This is concerning memorandums of understandings in general. I know that you have one with the Inspector General for oversight, and that you guys want another one with the Sheriff's Department to have leverage. I think that you guys would probably get it if you ask for it. That you guys are being ignored, or you guys are not able to do your job because the county councils and the LA County attorneys are rotten. For example, the LA County attorney at the LA County supervisors, I have her dealing hundreds of millions of dollars of unlawfully developed real estate in Newport Beach. And I look at you guys here working here, and it's the same thing. You guys are involved in so much illegal, unlawful activity. You have all these crimes going on around you where you live, where you work. Just walking within a mile of here, I see almost $1 billion of unlawfully developed real estate being built right now. And you guys just blow right by it. Don't even do your job or find out what's going on. I have no memorandum of understanding with the LA County Sheriffs. I'm letting you guys know. that LA County Sheriff's is out. They aren't getting a single penny from me ever again. There's no way. No LA County Sheriff's is allowed on any of my property, any of my cities, any of my counties, any of my states, any of my provinces, none of my territories, none of my countries. LA County, you guys aren't welcome anywhere.
Thank you.
To be totally out.
Chair Kennedy, that concludes public comment on
Okay.
this item.
So we've had a motion from Commissioner Bonner that the entire commission send over the memorandum of understanding drafted by the ad hoc committee on deputy gangs to Sheriff Luna forthwith. And I believe Patty seconded that motion.
Second.
And so we're ready to take a vote.
Let me just state the motion though, if I could.
No problem.
So the
Rob.
motion
You
is.
didn't like the way I framed it. Go ahead.
You left something out, okay? But the motion would be that the chair, on behalf of the full commission, submit the commission's draft MOU to share and protect confidential information to the sheriff for his review and approval at the earliest opportunity.
I like that much better. And it was seconded by Patty.
Second.
And so let's have a vote.
Chair Kennedy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jamon Hicks.
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Bonner,
Aye.
Commissioner Irma Higgins Cooper,
Aye.
Commissioner Luis S. Garcia,
Yes.
Commissioner Patty Giggins,
Aye.
Commissioner James Harris,
Aye.
Commissioner Hans Johnson.
Yes.
A motion carries unanimously, Chair.
Unanimously. That's a statement. I hope the county council will relay that to other members of the office. It is 10:51. We're going to take a 15-minute break.
Before we do, could I just, one thing, it's sort of an add-on to
Yes.
what we just did, but it's a separate item, but you mentioned, Sean, that there's some evidence of potential deputy gang and the I think it's called the Industry Indians.
Yes.
Anyway, the industry station of the sheriff's department. There's certainly been some indication. By the way, I don't mean to say these things have happened. I don't know, but there's been some indication that a new deputy gang / clique has or is forming in the East LA station. There's some indications that there's a deputy gang that may be formed or reformed or forming in the LA County Jail. And it all suggests to me that it would be appropriate, and I don't know that we need a motion for this, but would be appropriate for the chair of the ad hoc committee on deputy gangs to consult with special counsel with respect to, because we do have an ongoing investigation into deputy gangs, cliques, et cetera, to consult with special counsel about conducting further special hearings into the continued existence of deputy gangs, cliques, and exclusionary subgroups within the department and their impact within the department itself on employees of the department and the public.
Yeah, there being no policy in sight, I think that it may be that we have to reopen those hearings. Okay, we're going to take a 15-minute break and then take up the issue of harassment of families who have had a loved one killed by a fatal deputy-involved shooting.
Back to our seats. We're going to get the meeting started.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right.
We're going to resume this meeting. Because we have a very important topic as our last agenda item, and that is the harassment of families who had a loved one who was killed by a deputy involved was killed in a deputy involved shooting. And I understand that Chuck the sheriff has a representative, Rebecca Brown, who's going to appear virtually to discuss the sheriff department's lack of policies regarding the treatment of family members who have lost loved ones as a result of use of force by LASD deputies. So Rebecca, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate you all accommodating me for being out of the county today. Hi, my name is Rebecca Brown. I'm a civil rights attorney, and I'm also a member of the Check the Sheriff Coalition. I would first like to start by thanking Stephanie Luna and Selena Coleman for bravely speaking out about the deep trauma that they and their loved ones have endured of not only losing a family member at the hands of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, but the ongoing intrusive, intimidating, and disturbing harassment that they and their families have experienced over the last few years. It's incredibly brave, and I think their testimony and the testimony of other families is vital for everyone here to hear and to consider. I'd also like to thank the commission for making my job a lot easier today by already engaging in a robust conversation about this pervasive issue of family harassment. I would like to clarify and kind of open the scope beyond families who have been impacted by deputy-involved shootings to also include families who lost loved ones in the county jails and through other uses of force with the department. Because we know that folks in those situations have experienced intense and pervasive harassment as well, especially when they've tried to speak up and seek justice for the loss of their loved ones. And I'd also like to add that I am disappointed that Sheriff Luna chose to leave. I think if the department is truly committed to addressing this issue and gaining a deeper understanding of this issue, it would have been very beneficial for them to stay and engage not only in this presentation, but hear public comment that will be offered afterwards by impacted community members. So, this year so far in 2023, we've seen record numbers of in-custody deaths. I think we're at 40 at this point. We've had 12 deputy shootings, 9 of which I believe were fatal. We have pervasive violence inside in our jails and outside in our communities. That's plagued the department for years, as we've heard in our conversation about deputy gangs and about harassment so far. And our family members who've been impacted by this violence have bravely been speaking out for decades, calling for justice for the loss of their loved ones, calling for safer communities, calling for alternatives. And as I mentioned, it's incredibly brave, incredibly powerful, and we should be uplifting and supporting these family members as they're not only grieving the untimely and devastating loss of someone close to them, but also putting themselves out there to expose their trauma to everyone in the hopes of seeking change. But what we've been seeing over the last few years is a very disturbing trend of these family members being just relentlessly harassed by Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies. This is happening particularly in communities of color in East LA, in South LA, and in Antelope Valley. We've seen a clear trend of the harassment either beginning or spiking when families first start speaking out publicly about the department and accountability, or when there's some kind of major media story on one of these issues. For example, a couple of summers ago, I remember CBS ran a special on deputy gangs that featured the Vargas family, the family of Paul Rhea, and harassment of those two families spiked right after that special ran. This harassment of families raises extremely grave First and Fourth Amendment concerns, but beyond just the legal context, it raises incredibly important concerns about our culture of policing in Los Angeles County, our culture of accountability and public safety for everyone in the county. And as you've already heard today, this has been on the county's radar for years. The commissioners are saying every month they're hearing different families come in and share these really upsetting experiences of loss and of subsequent harassment. So this is nothing new. I did want to provide a little bit of context for folks who might not be as familiar with the county's involvement on this issue. And I do want to extend my gratitude and respect for the Civilian Oversight Commission and the Board of Supervisors and the OIG's office for the work that they've done. And I'm looking forward to continuing this work to put an end to this practice of family harassment. So in November of 2019, the COC heard testimony from families about brutal harassment that they've been experiencing across the county. And that's when the COC directed the OIG to investigate harassment, and the OIG issued the report recommending that LASD adopt this policy regarding memorial conduct at memorial sites and vigils, and thoroughly investigating complaints of harassment. In December of 2020, the COC adopted a motion for LASD to develop a policy that would prohibit harassment and encourage respect towards family members whose loved one has been killed by the department. We could go to the next slide, please. And in March of 2021, the Check the Sheriff Coalition, in partnership with Black Lives Matter LA and Centro CSO, hosted a really impactful virtual forum on family harassment that was attended by both Supervisors Solis and Mitchell. And different families spoke out about the harassment that they've experienced. Some of those families are the family members of John Horton, Anthony Vargas, Ivan Peña, Paul Rayo, Jorge Serrano, Marco Vasquez Jr., Eric Briceño, Dejan Kazee, AJ Weber, and Ryan Twyman, amongst others. This form is on the Check the Sheriff website. That's checkthesheriff.com. I'd really encourage folks who are hoping to gain a deeper understanding of this issue to go and watch the forum and just hear the stories of families and what they've experienced while they're coping with the loss of their loved ones. A couple months later, we put out a report documenting family harassment. We focused specifically on 2 families based in East LA, just as an example. But as I mentioned, this is a pervasive issue that is across the county, particularly in communities of color. Again, that report is also on our website, and I would encourage folks to go ahead and take a look at that report to really get a more detailed understanding that I can't cover in a couple of minutes here of some of the history of harassment, what's been going on, the county's involvement, and some of our recommendations from the Check the Sheriff Coalition. And then later in July of 2021, the Board of Supervisors requested that LASD, in collaboration with County Council, the OIG, and the COC, developed a policy regarding memorial sites and vigils. We heard today that LASD has apparently adopted a policy specific to memorial sites and vigils last year, but we need a specific broader policy or policies to really target and address this issue. Can you go ahead to the next slide, please? We've already heard a lot of testimony today, and I'm anticipating that we'll hear some more in public comments of what family harassment has looked like. But this ranges from really egregious incidents of false arrest, what I would honestly go as far to call kidnapping of the sister of Paul Rhea after she spoke out publicly against the murder of her brother. We've had the aunt of Anthony Vargas be followed by sheriff's deputies across the county. I believe it was from East LA down to Compton. We've had the younger sister of Paul Rhea, who was maybe 13 or 14 at the time, be followed home from while she's walking home from school by deputies who are taunting her and laughing at her. Sheriff's deputies showed up at the funeral of Ryan Twyman, who they murdered, I believe, in 2019, taunting the family and making comments to funeral goers. Deputies have terrorized the family of AJ Weber, who they murdered, showing up at their businesses, showing up at their home with guns drawn without a warrant. We have these really egregious and disturbing examples of family harassment, but I think it's also important to mention that a lot of this harassment isn't, if you take it out of context, doesn't necessarily look like harassment on its face. And I think when we're looking at this issue, I really encourage folks to look at the full picture of this is not just, one incident of a deputy driving by someone's house. Maybe that doesn't sound strange, but if you look at the context of they murdered this person's family member, they drive by their house every single day, they make rude comments, they're in a deputy gang territory that may have been associated with the death of their loved one. This is so insidious, this behavior, because of this context where a lot of these deputies are able to kind of walk up to the line of potentially legal or problematic behavior, but on its face, it doesn't quite cross over the line. But when we understand the full context of what's happening, of deputies parking outside people's jobs, waiting for them, just watching them walk from their car into work, pulling up to people's memorial sites, damaging items at memorial sites, one thing I wanted to mention that was discussed earlier is I've heard a lot of stories from family members of deputies retaliating against them for documenting law enforcement activity. There is one particular incident that's coming to mind where deputies detained a family member and deleted a video off of her phone of the deputies and of the detention. They've threatened to arrest family members who are filming them or taking pictures. They've ordered them to stop recording. They've intimidated them. They've escalated their tactics when people pull their phones out to try to document what's happening. Or after people are asking for evidence, as I think Stephanie Luna said, but people are trying to record or make that evidence. They're being threatened with violence and retaliation. I also wanted to mention, we were talking earlier about this question of evidence and complaints. Something that's really important is, yes, people have reported incidents of harassment to LASD, but what we're asking people to do in that process is to go to the department, reach out and contact the department, potentially go to the station of the deputies who murdered their loved ones, who are then harassing them on a constant basis, to go and report this harassment where we've historically seen no repercussions, no care. That's simply re-traumatizing people into what end. And so when we're looking at family harassment, again, I encourage people to look at the report. I encourage them to look at the family forum. I encourage them to listen to public comment, because officially filed complaints and reports are not giving you a full picture of the pervasiveness. And another factor I wanted to mention, just in talking with a family member the other day, I was checking in and seeing how what the harassment has been like lately is something that their family has experienced for years. And she said she almost doesn't notice it because it's become such a part of her daily life. Every day leaving the home, expecting to see deputies outside, expecting to see deputies driving behind her when she's driving with her children, driving with her family members. That's just unacceptable. That cannot be the case. And I think that underscores why it's so important to have anti-harassment policies specifically for family harassment. We can go ahead to the next slide, and I don't want to downplay the importance of addressing general harassment or unlawful policing or bad policing, but this issue is so critically important. It's tied to deputy gangs, as we've seen. It's tied to larger incidents of violence and death within the department, that it absolutely needs to be addressed in its own policy. And I do appreciate Commissioner Bonner's points on that prior. And I'm excited to see that before I made this presentation, that the commission is already going to move forward with drafting language. And we actually have, from the Check the Sheriff Coalition, drafted some language that we would recommend for policies that we're happy to share with you all. And I do have on my next slides. I encourage the commission to take a comprehensive approach, going beyond policies about vigils and memorial sites. Again, this is such a pervasive problem. We need to address surveillance, intimidation, just any of these unnecessary interactions with family members that don't serve any legitimate law enforcement function. I know I'm taking up a lot of time, so I'll keep things brief. We do have a couple other recommendations that we've set forward in our report that are still applicable. And I encourage folks to read the report to get a more in-depth view of them. One of them is creating an independent office of law enforcement standards that would operate independently of LASD to investigate incidents or allegations of misconduct and impose discipline on deputies. I know that's something that OIG has looked into, and I'm hopeful that that conversation will continue, and we can create a system of accountability where any community member feels safe and welcome to come forward and feels that their concerns will be taken seriously and their safety will be addressed and protected by the county. Again, we are encourage the COC to use their power to work with other county bodies to make LASD adopt comprehensive policies and actually enact these policies and discipline deputies to get to the root of this problem. I'll just also quickly highlight that we would like to see the continued expansion and development of the family assistance program to provide trauma-informed support to families that are impacted by LASD violence. And we would also push the COC to explore the possibility of setting a policy to transfer deputies who've been involved in incidents of deadly force to different stations so that family members cannot be harassed by them and they do not have to see them on a daily basis as many family members do. So I will leave it there. Happy to answer any questions. I thank you all so much for your time and I'm looking forward to hearing remarks. And then here we have our policy language that we set forward and I'm happy to go ahead and email this to the commission as a starting basis.
Please do.
Yes.
Before I take commissioner comments, I want to know, does OIG have anything they want to add other than, Darrell, what we've already been discussing this throughout the meeting.
Many of the recommendations that Check the Sheriff has are recommendations that we've made in some form or another in OIG reports. We did do a separate report on the Office of Law Enforcement Standards, and also in that report, there are other possibilities used by other jurisdictions that are mentioned as a possible way to investigate these types of complaints and other complaints. I do think it's very important to reiterate that the only way for the Sheriff's Department to investigate is to report it. And that can be done directly to the Sheriff's Department or through the Office of Inspector General. As the Check the Sheriff presentation mentioned, we don't generally investigate independently complaints. However, I do think that submitting things through our office can ensure the preservation of evidence. So in other words, if there is video evidence that deputies are harassing anybody, it's a good idea to submit that through our office so that we can ensure that that video evidence remains uncorrupted. There is one thing that I'd like to mention, which is that another way for discipline of employees to occur is that if deputies are interacting with members of the public, they are required to turn on their body-worn camera video. And if they do that, then there will be video evidence of some of these encounters. So if there's any encounter with a family member of a person who was either killed or injured by the Sheriff's Department, that interaction should be recorded on a body-worn camera video, which will at least give one perspective of the interaction. And the failure of deputies to turn on their body-worn camera may result in discipline. So that's an important part of the piece.
Okay, so they can go to OIG because I get people who show up at my school because they tell me that they don't feel comfortable making a complaint to LASD. Can those folks be sent to OIG?
They can. There's two different ways that those complaints can be handled. People can make an anonymous complaint, and we can certainly look at the evidence in support of that anonymous complaint, and we can report on it if it's noteworthy. We can pass complaints on to the Sheriff's Department. We do pass all complaints on to the Sheriff's Department unless the individual making the complaint tells us they don't want to. In other words, we need permission to pass along the complaint to the Sheriff's Department. With regard to anonymous complaints, the Sheriff's Department current policy is that they will not investigate anonymous complaints. However, they can investigate anonymous complaints. And I would say that when they are presented with evidence of misconduct, they should investigate anonymous complaints. So there certainly are anonymous complaints that you can't investigate because they're anonymous, but there are also anonymous complaints that can be investigated despite the fact that they're anonymous. So certainly from OIG's perspective, if it's something noteworthy, we will delve deeper, right? So, but in order to do that, we would need the supporting evidence. So there have been times when individuals have said that there is video evidence, and then we've asked for it and we have not been given the video evidence, and we can't opine on it or do anything further if we're not presented with the evidence. So it's important that people, if they make complaints, that they follow up, that they present the evidence, because the best way to address the issues in the Sheriff's Department is what we believe is fact-based investigations, where we have the evidence to support what's being said. So I would encourage people to continue complaining. And I do want to note that I have to leave in about 15, 20 minutes, and I apologize, but I'm certainly available if anybody wants to contact me at our office.
Thank you. Commissioners, anyone want to ask a question, weigh in regarding the presentation from Check the Sheriff?
Just I guess a request, and that is that if there is some proposed policy language specific to harassment of families of persons who have been subject to lethal force by a sheriff's deputy, that we would invite that. And I believe that would, I'm trying to think, perhaps I could ask Daniel Delgadillo to be the liaison to get any policy language that that might be available to us in due course, because we're going to be looking into that issue. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, this is an issue that has been out there since the beginning, and the Sheriff's Department always says they're not harassing anyone. People are just upset, and so anything they do is perceived as harassment. The complaints we get, or the reports we get from all kinds of different people in all kinds of different parts of the county, are similar, that they are being harassed, that people are mocking them, and that they're glaring at them and doing slow drive-bys. So it's a real issue, and I think a policy is due, but it's I'd love to see the Check the Sheriff research on the proposed policy. Anyone else? Let's open it up for members of the public to comment on this agenda item.
Yes, thank you. Our first speaker is going to be Minerva Garcia, followed by Leah Garcia, and then Helen Jones. If the other members can line up behind the speaker, that would be great.
Yes, my name is Minerva Garcia. You bandy about the words respect, professionalism, accountability, perceived harassment, a free society, democracy. It feels empty that this commission bandies about these words, but for these families who've lost loved ones by police killings and other means of violence, it's all meaningless. I want to tell you a quick story of experiencing sheriff's violence. We went to confront Villanueva in 2021 at a church in Pomona because he had doxxed minors, family members of these, families that have been harassed, who've lost loved ones. They were being doxxed. We went to confront him, and we were simply wanting to state our case. We were violently removed from the church in Pomona. One of the sheriffs, who outweighed me by 300 pounds practically, grabbed me by the elbow and almost broke it, all because we wanted to express our freedom of speech. Now, we go through the judicial system. We listening to the motion for deputy gang members to show their tattoos, for example, and Judge Chalifant, who heard the case, said that being in a deputy gang isn't necessarily criminal. Why didn't he ask why the gangs need to exist at all? You say a free society and democracy, but LASD keeps constantly violating the rights of marginalized communities. Would they do it in the Malibu station? There's no recourse through regular channels. Even you who have been judges and prosecutors, if you can't enforce subpoenas, what are regular people supposed to do? Reform is just another uniform. Abolish the LASD.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Leah. Okay, our next speaker will be Helen Jones. I don't see Ms. Jones in here either. So our next speaker will be Raquel Derfler.
Good morning, Raquel Derfler from Cancel the Contract AB. Prior to him once again leaving this meeting early, Sheriff Luna responded to the brave family members of those killed by LASD sharing their harassment at the hands of that same agency. He attempted to reassure the public that those under his command are not allowed to engage in such behavior and would be held accountable. But his tone definitely indicated he was skeptical of the family's testimony. Is he really naive enough to not understand that if his deputies were comfortable with punching, choking, and tasing Jorge Serrano during a misdemeanor arrest, or shooting Anthony Vargas 10 times in the back, once in his elbow and twice in his head, that they would have any misgiving about harassing their family members? Does he believe these families are lying, that they would continually relive the horror of their loved one's murder when speaking out against the harassment they face? The sheriff asked the public on the regular to have empathy for his deputies' trauma. I'm asking, where is his deputies' respect and empathy for these families' trauma? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Donald Harlan.
Hi, I'm Donald Harlan. I've been attending the Civilian Oversight Commission for the sheriffs since it started, on and off. And I left a lot of comments by now. You know, the LA County Sheriff's treatment of families of people they killed is pretty bad. I mean, there's a lot of bad guys. There's a lot of bad people doing stuff. You know, they're all in the property illegally. And the sheriffs are after people that aren't supposed to be there. Yeah. But, you know, there's always real bad people in all law enforcement, but LA County Sheriff's is bad. You know, they're a bunch of rapists trying to replace people. And they don't even target the criminals. They target their children, you know. It's like, you owe us money, so we're going to rape your daughter or something like that. That's LA County Sheriff's. Then to cover it up, they try to replace the people. They dig up their graves. The LA County Sheriffs, they've denied me a report on the murder of one of my children, one of my family members. And then they tried to cover it up by digging up their grave and denying. I never was able to retrieve the body of my murdered daughter or my brother from LA County Sheriffs. They're trying to cover it up so bad that they. Anyways, you know, there's no constitutional rights here in the United States because of LA County Sheriffs. I could say for sure that nothing you guys have done is going to count. You know, harassment to the sheriffs, only 8 sheriff suicides so far this year. You know, that's kind of a low number. It seems that normally by November, you'd have a lot more than 8 suicides in LA County Sheriffs. Maybe you aren't working hard enough.
Thank you, Donald. Appreciate your comment. The next speaker is Ali Rubenfeld.
Hello. It's disheartening that Sheriff Luna did not prioritize being here to learn about LASD's harassment of these families who devote so much of their time and their hearts to winning accountability and transparency over LASD. These families consistently put themselves in danger and they deserve respect and attention. I personally take issue with the characterization of this harassment of these families that they endure consistently as accusations. The BOS and OIG and the COC have all acknowledged this harassment is real and requires intervention by LASD. The ACLU and NLG wrote an extensive report on the issue. On November 19th, 2019, this commission heard from family after family about the harassment they have to endure by his department. In March of 2021, BLM, Check the Sheriff, and Central CSO held a virtual forum, which Supervisor Solis and Holly Mitchell attended. And again, families just recounted this endless harassment that they face and the severity of it and the disturbing pattern. I just can't help but think that for a sheriff who ran on changing the culture of LASD, these things are required viewing. The families who bravely shared their experiences at the forum were the family of John Horton, the family of Anthony Vargas, the family of Ivan Pena, Paul Rea, Jorge Serrano, Marco Vasquez, Eric Briseño, Dijon Kazay, AJ Weber, and Ryan Twyman. That is a lot of families. What is it going to take for LASD to prohibit family harassment? These families deserve a formal policy within LASD's manual. A newsletter is not going to curb the behavior of deputies who are involved in deputy gangs, and this department is riddled with corruption. They cannot delay this out of fear of ALADs or litigation. Thank you, Commissioner Bonner, for raising that. We need commitment and we need progress. These families deserve protection and the chance to grieve without fear. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Our next speaker is Marcella Rosen.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Okay. This year, over 40 people have died in LASD custody. It is on track to be one of the deadliest, if not the deadliest years on record under Sheriff Luna. And as we have heard today and have been hearing for years, the violence doesn't stop with those deaths. It doesn't stop with the grief and devastation that comes from losing a loved one. It continues in the form of harassment, intimidation, threats, and retaliation on the families who try to mourn and seek accountability for their loved ones. Despite the efforts of the Board of Supervisors, the OIG, and this commission to put policies in place, the families are still facing this harassment. The truth, which I think everyone in this room knows, everyone on the Zoom knows, is that LASD cannot be trusted to regulate themselves. Sheriff Luna cannot be trusted to hold his department accountable. He isn't here. He doesn't even want to put in the effort to pretend he's listening to these families or their experiences. So I really hope that this commission is able to take as aggressive of steps as you're capable of taking to try to make decisions that can actually make differences in the day-to-day lives of the victims of sheriff violence, in particular by adopting the recommendations made by the Check the Sheriff Coalition in their recent report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Stephanie Luna.
I was kind of hoping that the individual from the OIG's office was here so I could share a recent experience. June 26th is our most recent incident of harassment. This involved my son. We were driving home from taking him to celebrate his high school graduation. We had witnessed deputies conducting a traffic stop that involved 2 minors, and it seemed very aggressive. We pulled over, got out of the car, approached the sidewalk, and we pulled our phones out, started to film. There was a deputy that proceeded to push up against my son. He forcefully and physically pushed my son back. Because my son was recording, tapped his gun and told him that if he didn't get back, he was asking for it. So, naturally, like I said, I don't go to the sheriff's department to file complaints because the way that this process works with the OIG is they tell you to file a complaint on their website. So I did that. I was under the assumption that the complaint was going to be taken care of solely by the OIG. What ended up happening is they completely diminished communication between me and the individual, the inspector that was assigned to my case. He suggested in an email that instead of communicating with them, that I go ahead and file a complaint directly with the sheriff's department. Considering that my son's life literally depended on this complaint being filed, I went ahead, filed the complaint with the LA County Sheriff's Department, did the form online. I did not choose to remain anonymous just because they're well aware of who we are, so it can't get any worse than what it is, right? Filed the complaint. I did hear back from the watch commander and the new captain of the station. I believe his name is Brandon Dean, who did let me know that the complaint was going to be answered. It was going to be thoroughly investigated. Ended up getting a follow-up email from the watch commander of the East LA station saying that she would like to conduct a up to 3-hour interview with me, which would be in person or by telephone. And, this is the process that families have to go through when filing complaints. So I understand when people say, like, it's important for families to file complaints for the paper trail, but it's also, a really big turnoff for families when we're asked to go to the department and spend 2.5 hours laying out a story of harassment against the deputy with the department that's conducting the harassment. And within this filing, I did notice that there was 2 boxes checked off. One of them was officer misconduct and the second one was harassment. And that was because my son has had numerous incidents with this deputy.
Thank you, Stephanie. Your time has expired. Thank you. Our next speaker is Paula Yanes.
Paula Yanes, community activist. And I just want to make some comments about harassment. This has been going on, not just to these families just recently, as throughout the years as they have been killed, but this has been going on since I was a teenager growing up in East Los Angeles. I remember walking down the street and my friends that lived down the street, a male young teenager, Marcos, the police officer stopping him, taking his photograph, identifying him as a gang member. He was only a teenager. So this is systemic. This has been going on forever. And every time I come, I try to explain this is systemic and it has to change because it only happens in communities of color and where people are poor. Another time I was at my house, sheriffs came to my house. The officer said that it smelled like a whorehouse. And I was the only female there, okay? I was not even out of high school yet. And I'm thinking, and throughout my life, I'm already 70 years old and I'm still with that. It just traumatized me forever. I'm thinking now, well, how does he know what a whorehouse smells like unless he was there in one himself, okay? So another time I was down the street where I lived and the parents were out there. The police came by, they're harassing the young kids, again, the teenagers that were out there. And the parents went out there and right away, when the parents went out there, they told them to leave, to get away. Of course, the parent, her first thing that she wants to do is protect her children. While they started beating up the parents, they went to court. I was there and the police officers lied. I was at the Chicano moratorium. I was just telling Hans, Mr. Johnson about that. And we marched there in 1971. A peace rally in prevention of the war in Vietnam and to complain about all the atrocities that were going on in our community with police harassment. Same thing, institutional racism. And what happened? We were all beaten. We were shot with tear gas. For what? For trying to speak out against what was going on in our society, to end the war in Vietnam, so that we could have equal rights, civil rights, and so that we could graduate from high school instead of being harnessed and going to work in the in the warehouses or in the fields. So this has to change. This board right here has the opportunity to change the structure of this policing criminality of innocent people and creating these communities of prison and criminals, and to give people, young people, the opportunity to grow, to go to the universities and the colleges.
Paula, your time has expired. Thank you so much for your comment. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, the commission, okay?
That concludes the in-person comments, Chair Kennedy, but we have a few online. The next person is Julie. Julie, a request has been sent to you. If you can go ahead and acknowledge and begin your comment.
For this opportunity to speak on family harassment. Listening to Sheriff Luna is extremely discouraging. He is basically saying that he needs to take a look at each individual case. No, there needs to be policy, and it cannot come from the LASD because they will never effectively investigate themselves. Please, to the COC, please create an independent office of independent policy of standards that would operate independent of LASD and would investigate all allegations of misconduct, but more importantly, impose the discipline. Complaining about behavior of sheriff is very dangerous. You're listening to these stories. The harassment is adds to the trauma and pain when family members are killed and murdered by LASD. I am the grandmother of Paul Rea, who was murdered by a deputy gang member who wore a badge from the East LA Sheriff. The harassment that my family experienced every time we spoke up was horrific. You have heard Ms. Brown mentioned. My granddaughter at the age of 22 was held overnight in the East LA Sheriff's Station after complaining at a town hall of harassment by sheriff deputies. She was held overnight. There was never any charges. She was held overnight because the largest sheriff's department in the nation claimed they had no one qualified to take her fingerprints. In addition to that, she was lost when they brought her to the state. It took them an hour and a half to drive a 5 minute from the site that they illegally picked up and basically kidnapped her. The watch commander, as I sat asking him repeatedly, the East LA station, the watch commander had no knowledge of where my daughter was or where the officers were for an hour and a half. Please, we have spoken up on harassment. It is now time to move forward independent of this new sheriff. Please, COC, install policies that will stop harassment of families who have been inflicted by crime, violence, and the murder of their loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate your comment. Our next speaker is Andres Guan. A request has been sent to you. Can you acknowledge and commence your comment?
It's Quan ACLU. Our Take the Sheriff Coalition came together soon after, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, we came together soon after former Sheriff Villanueva came to power, and it's precisely because we centered the lived experiences of impacted families that we learned of and focused on the crisis of Black and Brown families, not only surviving the sheriff's deputies and deputy gang members, abusing and killing their loved ones, but then also the ensuing campaign of retaliation, harassment, often by the very same deputies who killed their loved ones. And we first brought this to the commission's attention in November 2019 after multiple incidents of serious harassment, for example, against Ryan Twyman's family when they were followed and pulled over after this commission's town hall in Willowbrook, and against Paul Rea's family, as Julie mentioned, when Paul's sister, Jaylene, was arrested for pretextual reasons, really, on October 30th, 2019, exactly 4 years ago. I want to go into more detail about what happened. On that day, ACLU SoCal sued the Sheriff's Department for completely violating SB 1421. We held a rally where Jaylene spoke for the first time. And after that rally, we went with the families of Paul Rea and Anthony Vargas to challenge Villanueva on one of his dog and pony show town halls he was holding, where deputies kept trying to take photos of the families, including the children. After the town hall, around 11 p.m., Paul's mother, Leah, called me saying that about 20 deputies rolled up to Paul's memorial site where the family had set up an ofrenda for Dia de los Muertos, and the deputies manhandled and arrested Jaylene. I arrived at the East LA station around midnight. We didn't know where Jaylene was for 2 hours. Julie had to call every hospital nearby to finally learn of her whereabouts. She had been taken to a hospital, but not before being driven around, speeding through red lights. When Jaylene kept asking, "Where are you taking me?" the deputies kept saying, "You'll see when we get there." When she was finally brought to the station, I got to see her and she knew what was going on. They were trying to intimidate her. And then the station deputies they then claimed that they had to keep her overnight, saying they didn't have anybody on staff to take her fingerprints. Mind you, as Julie mentioned, in the largest sheriff's department in the nation. This is just an example of the kind of harassment that the families have faced.
Thank you so much for your comment. Our next speaker is Genevieve. Genevieve, a request has been sent to you. If you can acknowledge it and begin your comment.
Genevieve Romero. I'm with the Care First California Coalition. I want to start by reiterating what other folks have already said, which is that if the harassment families are experiencing was a concern to LASD, then Sheriff Luna would not have left this meeting. And as was previously stated, Sheriff Luna is not even pretending to listen, as he feels that it's acceptable to not be here and listen to public comment. As was said in the presentation, in response to the concern and grief of families that have bravely spoken out, LASD deputies have harassed family members by damaging memorial sites, following family members, and even targeting families for arrest and detention without probable cause. This commission has acknowledged the seriousness of this harassment by joining the board and urging LASD to implement a policy forbidding the harassment of families in 2019. In 2021, the board requested LASD develop a policy to protect memorial sites and vigils for victims of deputy-involved shootings and killings, which LASD was supposed to accomplish within 90 days. Yet now, more than 2 years later, LASD has not adopted any policy which prohibits the harassment of surviving families, and as a result, surviving families have to continue to suffer under the harassment of LASD deputies on top of the trauma and grief that they have already endured. So how much is too much, and when will it be enough to adopt policies? This commission must urge LASD to immediately adopt meaningful policies to stop and prevent the harassment of families and proactive measures necessary to implement those policies. These policies should prevent LASD deputies from following family members, disrupting or destroying memorials or vigils, and should really just prohibit any intimidation or harassment of family members, either online or in person. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Janet Asante. A request has been sent to you. If you can acknowledge it and begin your comment.
Asante, I am with the Justice LA Coalition. I'm speaking to you today on behalf of the families that have continued to be harassed. And I say continued because, as other speakers have stated, this is an ongoing issue. The CUC has made clear their orientation on this. Now is the time to act on this orientation. By continuing to stand by means that you've already acknowledged that there is a problem going on with LASD harassing these families after everything that they have been through, which this commission should be overseeing much more strongly in the first place. And then continuing to allow it to happen. That is being complicit with the harassment in and of itself. And we can't allow this commission to stand by as this continues to happen to our directly impacted families. You are continuing the harm by not protecting these families from LASD harassment. This commission should be forcing the LASD to put this policy actually in place, since they are long overdue to stop harassing families. They shouldn't have done it in the first place, and you need to put an end to it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is MJ King. A request has been sent to you. If you can acknowledge it and begin your comment. MJ, if you can acknowledge the request and begin your comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Are you there, MJ? We'll move on and we'll reach out to her on the back end. So our next speaker is Helen Jones. Helen Jones, a request has been sent to you. If you can acknowledge and begin speaking. Helen Jones? Okay, MJ, if you can hear me, if you go ahead and begin your comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank the families who continually share their experiences with the commission. They are unnecessarily being re-traumatized, and that's on you. Only after community pressure did this commission and the Board of Supervisors condemn LASD's harassment of families. A previous speaker mentioned the July of 2021, the board motion, and here we are more than 2 years later, LASD has not adopted any policy which prohibits the harassment of surviving families. So y'all know families are continually harassed. At one of your last meetings, Max Huntsman said that it's just a matter of fact that community members will continue to be harassed and killed by LASD. That anyone would accept this as status quo is utter bullshit. Not one more family should lose a loved one to LASD or experience harassment. What are you doing to protect our community members from the sheriff's department? I know Luna left, but we need less talk, less excuses, and more action. I want to tell you to urge LASD to adopt a policy, but Luna sat up there today and talked about all the policies that they are in place. What do policies matter if they are not being followed? Our community is not safe from LASD violence and harassment. We are begging you to stop the violence on our communities, on our neighbors, at the hands of the sheriff's department. If we don't do something, another person is going to be murdered. Another family member is going to be harassed. Why do they have to continue to come and beg you for protection and re-traumatize themselves? What is the point of this? This is becoming a sham. We need you to act now with urgency, like that these are your community members and these are your children being harassed and put in cars and harassed. They can't even walk to school. We need you to act with urgency now.
Thank you for your comment. We're going to try Helen Jones again. Helen, a request has been sent to you. If you can go ahead and acknowledge and begin your comment.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we need to COC to adopt this policy right away as soon as possible. We have already had policies adopted by the sheriff department, and none of these policies have worked with the family. They have further harmed our family. They have further harmed the communities. When I remember when my son, we first gave John his first visual, the sheriff right after the county jail, right in front of the Twin Towers. And I remember when the sheriff department was riding, the sheriff deputy was riding by, they raised their shotgun up at us. And the lawyers that attended our visual seen this. And this was back in 2009. So we could just show you the history of how long the sheriff deputies have been doing what they've been doing, how long they have been harassing families. And we really don't understand that folks that can't see that the families being harassed when they've been killing our kids. They're not only harassing our families, but they're killing our family members one by one. Even with the shootings, they doing gang style shootings. They doing gang style beatings. So we don't understand how the COC or the board of supervisors and the sheriff department can't see this harassment when you are killing us. You what?
Thank you, Helen.
Something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. We appreciate your comment. Our next speaker is Sol Marquez. A request has been sent to you. If you can acknowledge it and begin your comment.
Marquez, member of Centro CSO Community Service Organization. We organize in Boyle Heights and in East LA. Thank you for taking my comment today. It's a shame that Sheriff Luna decided to back away from the families and from the public that he serves on what him and his employees have been doing to these families. I'm in solidarity with the families who have spoken today and those who are unable to do so, and all of those who have experienced deputy harassment after their loved ones are lost by deputies. Families like those of David Ordaz Jr., Edwin Rodriguez, Anthony Daniel Vargas, Paul Rea, Marco Vasquez Jr., Vanessa Marquez, and so many others. On May 2nd of 2023, Adrian Rios was tortured and killed under mysterious circumstances and under the care of deputies at the East LA station. His mom has spoken about how she was also threatened and was told not to fight for her son. And to this day, she hasn't gotten a clear answer of why her son, Adrian Rios, was killed and tortured under the mysterious circumstances only on May 2nd. Not only have these families lost their loved ones, but they also continue experiencing terror while attempting to live their everyday lives. Families should never lose their children or their loved ones in the manner that they have, and they also should be allowed to at least mourn their families without being harassed by these deputies. It's a shame that, Sheriff Luna sat there today and said that there's already policies in place that will hold his employees accountable, and yet nothing has been done. It sounded like when he started off speaking today that he had never heard anything, when in fact Ms. Williams and countless others have demonstrated that there are multiple complaints of the harassment and the treatment that they have received. I hope that a new policy in place that addresses this distinctly will help alleviate the stress that these families are going through, but also not one more killed by sheriff deputies. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Chair Kennedy, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. So the final agenda item is general public comment. Do we have any?
Yes, we do. Our first speaker is Isaac Ashbury.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I want to speak on Operation Safe Street unit. So I'm gonna give you some numbers real quick. In that Operation Safe Street unit, it's supposed to, I found that over 247 deputies in the past 20-something years have been involved in shootings, okay? So 4 deputies were involved in 7 shootings. 8 deputies were involved in 6 shootings. 9 deputies were involved in 5 shootings. 30 deputies were involved in 4 shootings. 70 deputies were involved in 3 shootings. 180 deputies were involved in 2 shootings. And 167 deputies were involved in 1 shooting. I give you these statistics because from what we're starting to see that the deputies that's on the Operation Safe Street, you can't get their information when they're involved in the shooting. The public can't get it. I mean, at least I can't get it. So we have a listing of who all been involved in these shootings. I also want to thank the FBI, Mr. Donald Alway, and the U.S. Attorney, Mr. Estrada, Sean Kennedy, and Judge Bonner, because the work you guys do here, you may not see it. It goes a long way in the community, okay? Just because you don't see the community here, the community is concerned what goes on in their community. That's all I have.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Ron Dowell.
Stephanie Luna spoke eloquently about the need for policy and accountability earlier. I'm a 50-year homeowner in the city of Compton. I'm a stakeholder there and I'm a concerned citizen. And it disturbs me that the self-serving, ineffectual and ineffective elected officers and their appointees there can't do what the mayor of Lancaster is doing and actively get involved and influence what the sheriff department does in that city. We've asked them repeatedly to come and do their sole job. Their sole job is to kiss babies and develop policy. That's what the council is there to do. We've specifically asked them to have deputies or to develop policy to have deputies, incoming deputies and all sheriff personnel in Compton to come in and introduce themselves during council meetings, explain why they want to come to Compton, what value do they bring to Compton as a way of getting to know who is working in the city. We've asked those folks to have the sheriff assure us that there are no executioners, no jump out boys, no proud boys, no oath keepers working out of Compton Station. To date, no one has been able to assure us of that. Earlier this week, 2 deputies were in prison because of falsely imprisoning a young guy there in Compton. And those are the same 2 deputies who were involved in the death of Andres Colorado. So there's a lot to be said about what's not happening in Compton, and those responsible don't even say anything similar to what the mayor in Lancaster is doing. He's provided a template that it is possible to influence and control your contractor.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Michelle Infante.
Good morning, Commissioner. My name is Michelle Infante. I'm with Dignity and Power Now. I was at home on vacation when I heard Stephanie Luna speak, and it bothered me so much that I threw my clothes on and I came down here. First of all, family impact remarks. That's 10 minutes for every family. I fought for this. I fought for this, and you guys are taking it away by limiting it to only new families. Like Stephanie said, this is for everyone to speak. We developed this for everyone. You are here because of us, not anybody else. We are the ones that brought you here. Not only that, but you've limited family speaking up here to 2 minutes. In San Diego, they give 3 minutes, and they don't interrupt people when they're not done speaking because they know they need to hear what they're saying, and it's important. You need to take a page from San Diego. You need to give back to the families that come up here and speak. You know that 2 minutes is not enough. They've come up here for years and years and years, and in order for everyone to hear what has happened to them and the impact, you are limiting them to 2 minutes. You are taking away the information that you need. And I do not understand why you're doing that. You were not built to do that. You were not built to give something and then take it away year after year. This is for them to speak. They should be able to speak whatever they want, and they should be able to do it with 3 minutes. And every family that is impacted, then don't have that statement. It's family impact remarks. Don't say that if you're not going to allow everyone to come up here and make a statement about what has happened to them. You're stealing their time. You're taking away information that is important to you regarding exactly what the Sheriff's Department is doing to them. And when you only give them 2 minutes, or you limit the amount of people that are coming for a 10-minute family impact remark, you are taking away information.
Thank you for your time. Your
That
time has
directly
expired.
impacts these families and
Thank you for your
indirectly
comment.
impacts the other families that are out there that are also being affected by this.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Donald Harlan.
Hi, I'm Donald Harlan. You're gonna have a hard time getting Alex Villanueva. There's more than one of him. The first Alex Villanueva, before he started doing illegal real estate over here in East LA, he was picked off a fruit farm. I'm not sure if it was Mexico. I think it was Mexico. We picked him off a fruit farm before he was working for me doing something like that in East LA, sorting fruit or making tortillas or something like that, or making candy or something in East LA before he got into the sheriff's position. That's the other one, the one with the broken knees. But the other dummy, Villanueva, he's from up north, Central California, one of the coastal towns. You can make him respond or compel him to respond by telling him that town he's from, it's on Donald's property. His family, that other Sheriff Villanueva, his family set himself up over there like they own the whole town. They need to explain themselves. Like they own the whole town. They set up their own sheriffs in their own city, all on my property. The second Sheriff Villanueva, he still needs to answer that stuff about that town. He thinks that's his up in the coastal Central California. That's a good lever to compel him. Okay, LA County Sheriffs, only 8 suicides this year. That's kind of a low number. I don't really believe it when LA County sheriffs say they commit suicide anymore. I really don't even believe you guys. I think that they fake their deaths and move away and it's all staged. I think if there's really 8 LA County sheriff suicides this year, maybe they should prove it. I don't believe LA County sheriffs that 8 of you have committed suicides. You need to prove it.
Thank you for your comment. Your time has expired. Our next speaker is Paula Yanes.
Paula Yanes, community activist. I just wanted to make one more comment. The policy that Check the Sheriff has taken time to write, I think that is really a significant document that needs to be, looked at. The recommendations that they're making comes from community. They know the issues of the community. They know the problems within the Sheriff's Department as well. And they should be taken seriously because that's the first step also, working with the commission to try to implement and to bring change into all the problems that we're having in our community. And I just wanted to add one more thing as well, is that for county council, is that a petition, you need the petition to be filed so that you could get the subpoena. That could be done in one day. If county council is serious about doing a petition, it could be done, because I used to file petitions and I wrote it within 72 hours, sent it to my supervisor, and my supervisor approved it. So they're just taking their time and not taking these issues seriously. You're protecting the wrong people. The people that need to be protected are the people that are in the community, and that their families are being killed, they're being harassed, and they're being treated differently because, because they're poor and people of color as well. So those are, I think those are really important issues that we need to look at. And I don't know where to go from here, because you guys are doing, Mr. Roberts, your recommendations they're being ignored. So what's the next step? Like you said, you don't need the county council in order to pursue what needs to be done. So that's the next avenue that needs to be done, and community as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
comment. Our next speaker is online speaker Jessica Thays. A request has been sent to you. If you can acknowledge it and begin your comment. Jessica? Jessica, if you could hear me, go ahead and begin your comment. There's no response, Chair Kennedy.
Oh, can you
Oh,
hear me?
yes, go ahead.
Oh, thank God. Sorry. I'm a mother, a business owner, and a CEO. Today I come to you with the reality I never imagined possible. My husband and I are in a desperate situation where our two daughters, age 7 and 4, have been roughly
Hi, Jessica. You have really bad connection and you're cutting out. We're hearing like every other word. I don't know if you can hear me. Chair Kennedy, I don't know. I guess we can conclude.
Okay, we're going to conclude this meeting. I appreciate the comments from the community about opportunities to speak. I'm listening. We're all listening. And, our desire is to give this community as much face time and opportunity to speak as we possibly can. One of the reasons why we do town halls. And, but your comments are well taken. We're going to have our next meeting on December 14th at Peck Park in San Pedro. And you can follow us on social media or visit our website for more details. Is there anything else we need?
Yeah, with respect to, thank you, Chair Kennedy. With respect to our meeting on December 14th, I'd like to request, and I think this is a request by the full commission, that county council, the supervising attorney at county council's office, with respect to the enforcement of the subpoenas of relating to Alex Villanueva and Timothy Murakami, that the supervising council in the county council's office, as well as the outside council, Harvey Anand, appear before the commission to discuss the status of the litigation to enforce the commission subpoenas on those two individuals. This needs to be agendized, and we should set aside a half an hour, I think, for that discussion at the front end of our December 14th meeting. And it should be set as a confidential or executive session of the commission to start at 9:30. That would mean if we do that, and I hope we do, that the public session would be start at 9:30 rather than 9 o'clock on December 14th. But I would point out that one of the exemptions of the Brown Act is confidential or executive sessions with respect to attorney-client privilege matters with respect to litigation, ongoing litigation, or potential litigation. So that exemption, in my view, having read the Brown Act, reread it recently, applies to any public body, including the Oversight Commission, which is subject to the Brown Act. So there's an exception to the Brown Act that would allow a confidential session with counsel to discuss the status of that litigation. So I would hope that we would do that. And if for any reason county counsel declines to appear, I think I would request that we have a legal memorandum from them as to why this exemption does not apply to the Civilian Oversight Commission, and that be submitted to us no later than December 6th, 2023. So we'll know whether or not we can agendize this particular matter. But I don't know that we need a motion, but anyway, I think it's really important that the full commission be briefed by counsel with respect to where they are in enforcing our subpoenas as to former Sheriff Villanueva and former Under Sheriff Murakami.
I think it's completely appropriate, Rob. I have a meeting with county council tomorrow. I'm going to extend that invitation, and I'm going to personally call our outside counsel and invite him as well. And we'll take this up in an executive session at 9 a.m. on December 14th. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.